Troy got one today too.
I don't get it.
You know, you need to realize my vocabulary, right? There are words in these emails that I would never use.
I figured it was just
Times are tough, but they're not gift card tough. Laptops, I'm fired up.
yeah, all ready to go.
We're going to be quoting from the scriptures.
Oh. Kick back. Try not to get sick from Todd because he's sick over here.
I told you I was better until I went out this morning.
You know, I'm gonna hug you.
Yeah, let's snuggle, you and I.
You and I are
The
snuggling.
virus came from that direction over
Yeah,
there, just saying.
But he can't even talk. He claims it's ribs, but you never know.
Yeah, I know. He's can I switch? Anyone want to switch seats? He's under the weather.
I'm not, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Well, he's sucking on it.
Or switch seats with you.
No. Forgot to turn that one off.
No, that's how he knows when to start.
Good evening. Today is Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. I'd like to call the regular meeting for the Board of Selectmen to order.
Linda Grappo.
Troy Lemire.
Paul Marino.
Paul Harrington.
Todd Archelashi.
Glenn Albanesius.
William Hester.
Andy Perez.
William Pozo.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3, agenda review. Anyone have anything? Moving on to item number 4, approval of the minutes of our regular meeting on January 6th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Any discussion?
Just one
Okay.
minor typo. Item 6, line 2. Change to January 16 instead of December 16.
It's up there.
Line 1.
Were these due by December 16th or?
No, it was January 16th. Good catch.
Anything else? Seeing no further discussion, all in favor? Unanimous? Item number 5, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Please give your name and address. Who would wish to speak? Seeing no one, moving on to item number 6, town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple updates on a few items that are happening. OSHA update, our closing conference with OSHA following, it was done just before or just after the new year. The results were a little bit better than anticipated, though we still face several compliancy requirements. The primary focus will be on developing comprehensive procedures and manuals for each department. We initiated the process and reached out to our neighboring municipalities to potentially leverage existing materials that have already been written to try and lessen the burden. Once we received the formal violation notices and associated fines by mail, to note that OSHA did not list any fines, did not list any actual violations. They went over them in general, but we will be expecting a package via certified mail that lists all of the violations that were not fixed during the inspection or slightly thereafter the inspection. And at that time, I will have an opportunity to bring in a supervisor of OSHA to discuss the potential fine reduction. The inspector did note favorably that we had already addressed several items that were identified during the initial inspection, which he indicated would work very favorably during the review process. So in essence, when he met with us and went through the entire town for that 1 week, he did note different things. Up for that 3-week period between the opening conference and the closing conference, we had the ability to email him pictures and or documents saying that we have addressed it, so it may not even appear on the violation once it finally comes through. So although the closing conference has been completed, we are still in a OSHA inspection and waiting on the final report and then any potential fines that they may levy against us. Traffic safety initiative, I did reach out to SiteStream. This is going back into traffic cameras. If you remember, we spent a fair bit of time at the last meeting talking about one particular agency's program. I can let you know that SiteStream's proposal is quite different. SiteStream requires no upfront cost, whether it's the first camera or any amount of cameras that we wish to put into town. We could have up to 5 cameras, 10 cameras, 20 cameras, whichever is approved by the DOT, the amount, they will put them up for free. They work completely on a profit-sharing basis, meaning that if it's a $50 ticket, they would receive they would receive $35. We would receive the remaining portion. If we were to include a $15 processing fee, we would then get $30 a ticket. They would get $35 a ticket. With that, there is no mechanism of them charging us. They get paid, we get paid. There's no upfront cost or any laying out of any municipal funds while these cameras are being installed. One of the things that this board made very, very clear at the last meeting is they wanted data. My response was, currently there's only 1 camera installed in the state of Connecticut. It's going to be tough to get the data. What SiteStream has agreed to do, in working with the chief, we're gonna come up with 3 locations that we feel may warrant a traffic camera, and they're going to, over the next 45 to 50 days, get the actual data that if a camera was installed in this particular location, this is how many violations that it could potentially tick up. So that's gonna take some time. It's gonna take some time for them to set up the equipment. So we're probably, unless this board feels differently, not going to talk about traffic cameras at this level, probably not until March again. We want to go out, we want to collect some data. We may be surprised by the data that comes back. We may see that we have a lot more speeding than we thought, or we might have a lot less speeding than we actually thought. Let the data drive the conversation. We're going to go out and get it for you. We'll bring it back to you as soon as we get the data. Police update, I did meet with the chief after last Board of Selectmen meeting. Despite all the challenges the officers faced last year, traffic enforcement efforts had improved. There was a 19% increase in traffic stops, going from 590 in 2023 to 702 in 2024. Over the past 2 years, parking enforcement efforts averaged almost 5 tickets per month, 60 tickets in 2023 and 58 tickets in 2024. And then at your request back in November, he stated that he did begin deploying the unmanned police cruiser as part of speed reduction efforts. I do want to get a list of, if he has, of where these particular vehicles were. He did also want to note that when we are discussing strategy for speed enforcement, we want to go into executive session, and that we are literally giving our playbook out of particularly where we might be doing speed enforcement. That's for the board's decision, but I did want to bring that up. Moving on to the Northwest Transit, ongoing budget negotiations. Selectwoman Perez was with me, have been very productive. We've done a pretty detailed analysis and strategic planning. Initially, they came in with just over a $10,000 increase. Right now, we're hovering around a $3,000 increase with additional discussions happening later this week. We're really looking at every line item, maximizing and seeing where we could potentially pick up a little bit of savings. As you probably remember, years ago, it was a $5,000 line item in the budget, went up to $75,000, and this year, potentially, they were looking at well over $80,000 for our portion. So Selectwoman Perez and I have really dialed them in, and to be continued on where our final budget may end up. I think we're meeting Thursday with them. Animal Control Services, as you recall, last year we went to a regional approach for the ACO. We did meet the 2 new animal control officers up in Barkhamsted. These 2 officers they absolutely blew me away. General compassion for animals, the ability to go out and service these towns. One of the things that I asked is that when we initially joined this program, there were just 3 towns. Now there seems to be a lot more towns being included in the ACO regional approach, and I'm looking for budget reductions because obviously, there's an economy of scales that should be happen. So waiting to see where our numbers come in on the ACO. Wallens Hill Development, I met with a very well-established developer last week. They wish to remain anonymous at this stage. They expressed serious interest in Wallens Hill, and initial discussions were very productive, and they're currently conducting market research to determine the optimal developable options up there. He has the financial capacity and the expertise to pull that project off. So he is off spending real money on getting market research to see if the project is viable or not viable. Moving on into the 25-26 budget planning, as corrected in our meeting minutes, all of the budgets have been turned into the town manager's office. We are sifting through them all, and we are going to meet one-on-one with all of our director heads starting next week. I don't want to scare anybody with the initial numbers because, again, those are just asks right now, but it is going to take some real creative thinking to get a budget to all of you sometime in March, but we will start the process or have started the process, and we will get this all figured up. And last but not least, personnel update, building inspector interview process will hopefully begin this week. We have 3 candidates that we're looking to bring in. Fire chief, we did receive a very highly qualified candidate that should be interviewed this week as well. And the town planner, as mentioned last week, still developing a comprehensive strategy to ensure that we figure out the department needs before we jump too quickly. But I wanted to update you on those 3 personnel positions that are still open. With that, I'll open it to the board with any questions they may have.
Troy?
Well, in regards to the speeding, if I remember correctly, when the towns received the speed limit signs from Region 5, I believe that you were able to get the data through a computer off of that sign on how many people were speeding, because it would let you know how many people went through going faster than the posted limit on the sign.
Okay. I'm familiar with that. Obviously, it was before my time, but I would assume that's,
I mean, Jimmy can look into that.
would it be Jimmy or would it be the chief?
Well,
And
it was
I can find out who,
It was
but.
given to us, given to the Public Works Departments.
Oh,
So we put them up. I thought there was one on Main Street.
okay. There is, right by
Okay,
Railway. We
so
talked about it.
Every time you go by and it turns red, it goes, it gets.
I don't think
you get
ours
the
Ours
information.
doesn't turn red. Does yours turn red in Norfolk?
Yeah. If you're higher.
Ours
than the
may have
speed
been
limit.
donated by a private individual back when we got it.
Well, Jimmy did get 2. We all got 2. I
Okay.
know that
Because we
for a
have
fact.
one up the
Yeah,
lake.
they're
and 2
both on
Main Street.
Newfield Road, one 20 yards on one side of my driveway and the other one about 40 yards on the other side.
Same
of my
direction?
driveway. No, both directions.
Both direct. Okay. So
There is one up on the lake too, but do you have an account with yours that you're able to log into?
I don't. That was an option that we could do. We didn't really care about that. There was a woman in charge that gave us these things through the Region 5. If you contacted her, there's a way to get in there and.
If it's recording the data, because if
It
that
does
option wasn't selected
She was able
though.
to get it from her offices as long as there was Wi-Fi where the sign was.
okay.
I do
You just
remember
threw me
that.
with Wi-Fi where it is, and
Well, that's
Selectman
not-
Pozo saying Newfield Street. So
I thought
I'm on it.
there was one on Main Street. That's why.
I'm on it. I'll see what kind of data I can pull from that.
Other questions? Candy?
The OSHA inspection.
Yes.
You mentioned just the manuals, and you used the word other things. What things are you talking about with this OSHA inspection that were in non-compliant?
So some of the items that we faced was different manuals for each level within the department. So, you have the testing center, and you have different chemicals that you may use in a particular testing center up at the sewer plant or the water plant. We don't have manuals of exactly how to use those particular chemicals. Also, the other thing that we got dinged on was every piece of chemical that we need or use needs an MSD-S sheet. And typically what happens, and it's unfortunate, and it's something that we picked up as a group, is we go out and get a glass cleaner. And next week, we go somewhere else and we get a different glass cleaner. We would need an MSD sheet on each particular glass cleaner because it's made by a different manufacturer. So where we're going to is in even how to use a safety mask when using those harsh chemicals. We didn't have a manual on the actual right way to put a mask on your face. What happens if you were to get something into your eyes? What are the procedures? Those are the manuals that we'll be looking at developing for each area of Town Hall. The other one would be in Town Hall, our maintainer needs to be certified. And if somebody has a bloody nose and it actually, spills out onto the floor, how does that particular maintainer clean that particular blood off of the floor? That's where a lot of this geared on. It wasn't that we had, extension cords or, there was a lot of stuff that's gonna cost a fortune to fix, structural things to fix. A lot of it's gonna be driven by data that we're gonna have to put on a piece of paper of what to do in situations and how to use different things.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Candy?
Yeah, I have a couple things. I'll start with Sue Grossman. About 4 meetings ago, offered to work a plan with people. Are we gonna be able to do that?
We are. That's actually another post-it note on my monitor of establishing the Sue Grossman. Guess the question becomes is, does the Board of Selectmen want to appoint it similar to the ad hoc committee that we did with traffic? Or is that something where you want to give the latitude to the town manager to appoint and work with a small group of people?
Well, I just know that 4 weeks has gone, 4 meetings have gone by, which is 8 weeks, so with everything that's coming up, it would be good to get that moving, because there are pieces of land on the Winston Road that are up before for some, what is it, the zoning sign, the zoning things are up, planning department sign is up, and just other things that are happening on Winston Road. It would be good to start to have discussions about, where it's gonna go, as much as how we're gonna fund it. And I think that it would be good to get out ahead of some things with it, and I'd just like to see it move, like I said before.
I, for one, would be fine with you appointing an ad hoc committee, because there's a lot of homework that needs to be done there that we're not able to do. So the property's involved, the easement's involved, the current plan, finding where that is, and is that plan still viable? I mean, it'd be great if someone else was working on getting that information together, so finally we can start to move it along. And I think that's really, some type of committee needs to really take it.
Anything else, Candy?
The animal shelter. With the animal shelter, I know somebody asked me, are we getting data from Harwington in terms of number of animals per month that are coming in from our town, other towns? What kind of information or report do we get from Harwington? Anything with the rabies, the state regs, et cetera, et cetera?
We currently are not getting any information. There was a little bit of a how do I want to put this delicately?
Snafu.
There was a little bit of a snafu with the original ACO officer that was hired, in that no reporting was being done at the state level, no reporting was being done at all. So under this new 2 ACO officers, we were promised last week that reporting will be happening on a monthly basis, and we will know all of that information. But I can say that when we joined this regional control, there was a great word, Mr. Mayor, a massive snafu that no reporting was being done, and the current ACOs had to actually go to the state of Connecticut and ask for forgiveness of, they weren't even sure if they would be able to give them the reports back then. And the state agreed, whatever you can do, we're fine with. They were actually brought in on the snafu as well, so they were well aware of the issue that went on up there.
And then the last thing is, I know we've been talking about the traffic on Main Street and stuff. Is there an opportunity for those of us with ideas to give them to the committee? Because if I'm correct, and maybe some other people that have been around town for a long time, there used to, and I think I told you, Paul, the medians used to be painted green. If I remember way back when, the medians were painted green, and I know that when you start meeting with state officials, is there a way to take paint where we don't have real medians, and they use it, like I've mentioned before, in other other countries and places to use paint, and then to take the line, the white line on either side and pull it in, give more room for parking, take the white line that's by the medians and pull that in to go down to one lane, just by using the visuals until it comes time where we can, either put in real medians or change it to diagonal parking way down in the future. So, just some, when we can be able to do that.
So that's a great question. So the ad hoc committee did have its first meeting tonight. We did notice the meeting at the town clerk's office. We will have meeting minutes as well. I am meeting with our website provider tomorrow and looking to add the ad hoc committee onto it so the agendas can also go online as well. But they are open meetings. So our next meeting, it looks like we're going to meet the first Monday of every month at 4 p.m. We're going to look to do it in the Blue Room. And then obviously, once we unlock the ability to do it on our website, we'll be able to obviously advertise it a whole lot better. But yes, the public is more than welcome to come to the meetings, and we'll have, lack of a better term, citizens' comments at the, couldn't think of that word for the life of me right there. We will have the ability for citizens to chime in at the start of the meeting to share those ideas. And one of the things we stated early on in the meeting, and it was a question, by some of our ad hoc members, was they want to hear from the community. I didn't mention this when we were talking about the traffic cameras. Next Monday night, Middletown is going to go to a public informational session on traffic cameras. I do plan on, if my schedule allows it, going down there. Not for any reason I didn't have anything to say, I just want to listen. And I think it's very important while we're in the early stages of this, I gather as much information. And where does Middletown have any similarities to Winstead? Probably not, but probably one thing: speeding. So me going down there and just at least listening to residents to see what their concerns may be. Hopefully I can get down there next Monday, and I want to report back what another community. I know you're all looking for the data. This is part of the data gathering mission right now that we're on.
Well, Kent had their public vote on it, so.
Yeah, and Kent had their public vote that went down 3-1, roughly. So interesting. And Hamden's looking at putting them in. There was an article that I happened to read just before I came down. One of the news channels were stating that they believe that traffic cameras are going to become this new thing in all of the communities. That was their opinion of it. I know what the article said, that Connecticut seems to be a lot further behind than other states in the country, but we'll see where it goes. And but I got to get that data.
Anyone else? It's been bitterly cold. Have we had any cold weather incidents?
Other than the ceiling breaking on the 3rd floor yesterday, but I think that was from the snow. We took care of it, but right by the elevator, we had a ceiling breaking. But other than that, we've been pretty good.
Excellent. No one else? Moving on to item 7, Finance Director's Report. Is she here? She's hiding behind the column. She likes to sit there behind the column, so we can't see.
No matter where I sit, I get ops view for somebody.
Good evening. These are the general fund results for December 31st, 2024. We are halfway through the year. Current property tax revenue, $16,651,827. That's about 60.89% of budgeted. That's in comparison to last year of $16,568,069, which was 62.33% of the budget. Motor vehicle supplemental, very small right now, obviously, because through December, $9,545, which is 4.2% of budget, compared to $19,079, which was 9.54% of the budget for last year. Past due tax revenue, current year to date, $216,343, 36.06% of budget. That's in comparison to $187,299, which was 55.82% of budget. Total revenues year to date, $20,199,812, which is just under 50%, 49.5%. That's in comparison to 21,178,297 last year, which was 54.12%. Total expenditures year-to-date, 20,146,293, 49.37%, and that's in comparison to 21,082,351, which was 53.8%. Our municipal aid received in the month of December, our property tax disabled from the state of Connecticut, just a little over $1,000, $1,089. Property tax for veterans, $4,358. An installment of Pilot Pequot, $16,491. Our distressed municipality payments of $3,054. A piece of early voting, $2,727, and the grant for the senior center of $28,390. Cash flow at December 31st, just a little over $6,724,000. Of that, $5.2 million was invested, $453,000 in the Northwest Community Bank sweep account, a little over $2.5 million in STIF, and $2,266,000 in our Northwest Community Bank money market account. December capital expenditures. We had $12,200 paid for the Sue Grossman Riverside Trail fence, a little over $10,500 in annual road maintenance, $6,000 for Communities Challenge Main Street signage, $2,500 towards the Deep Trails grant for the Mad River, $18,102 for the Smith Hill Road culvert, $19,990 for the retaining wall on East Wakefield Boulevard. Additional payments for the Elm Street project, which is a bond project, $475,292, and then Hubbard Street bond project, $316,166. That's it. So that lovely 3 or 4 page eye chart that I handed out to everyone, that's for you to sort of peruse at your leisure. That is a summary, or our best attempt so far to summarize all of the capital projects since 2018 when the fund, not when the fund was established, but when the fund, the last date that the fund was rolled into the detail, or excuse me, into the summary. So behind all of that, couldn't print you all of the years because it would be, I'd need a map plotter to print it all for you. So behind all of that, there are multiple years going back to 2018. There's columns for all of the budgets and columns for all of the expenditures. All of those rolled into, I think I gave you 2024 and current total budget and then total expenditures. What I tried to do is put some notes off to the side. Mr. Rollins and I sat down and went through all of those and tried to kind of figure out where is the project, are we done with the project? So what we did was I pulled out at the very end of that the items that we think are closed projects that we can kind of not put on the schedule anymore and figure out what we want to do if there are budgets remaining on those. Just keep in mind that some of these going back, some of these older projects, the system didn't have budgets in there for some of this stuff, so it was kind of a piecemeal, try to put together as much information as I could get out of the records that we have. So take that all in. We can go over it at some point. Like I said, it's really kind of a draft. Other than the numbers that I'm pulling in from the ledger system, the whole document itself is kind of just a draft, but hopefully it gives you an idea of where all the projects are at. It's a lot.
So one of the items that Anne Marie and I had asked this relatively early on is, when was the last time we swept capital accounts, which is driving this particular worksheet. You go into any capital project, you go into any roadway project, you try and budget the dollars that you're going to need. Is it exact? It's never going to be exact. Some things hopefully come in under, some things slightly over. There could be a potential, pool of money that we can swipe out of capital accounts to possibly fund new capital items. Now, we will need to go to the townspeople. We would have to ask them that, but what we're trying to do is find a number of capital accounts that we know are officially closed. and that the project is done, that the pavers are gone, or the vehicle's been delivered, the fire truck's been delivered. What's the number on the fire truck alone, Amory? It was six?
Oh, I don't even know.
I'm gonna, please don't quote me, but, you know, the new ladder truck we purchased, I think there was roughly $60,000 that, you know, we did not spend on the complete purchase of the truck when we went to the voters and we asked them to fund a fire truck. So that $60,000 is just sitting there. Well, we should look to see all of the money that's available that isn't going to be spent, because we obviously all know we have a ladder truck. We're not gonna spend on it anymore. We should be able to reallocate those dollars into new capital items. We'll have to go through a lot of different, you know, procedures to get that done. But what we're trying to do, and Anne Marie's been working very hard, is get us a number of capital accounts that we feel are closed out. What's that dollar amount? And is this board willing and are the voters willing to then reassign that money to potentially new capital projects?
And this is a schedule that I've been doing like for a while now, like not just this schedule, but I do this summary on a regular basis for myself, because what happens is in our system, the budgets don't carry forward. So it may show that there's no budget for this year, but we may have budgeted $250,000 last year. So I want to get these all cleaned up so that we pull forward every year the balance that was remaining at the end of the year, to make it easier for all of our directors to know what do they have left in their capitals versus having to go, what do I have, and keep asking the questions. It'll make it much easier to, particularly for Mr. Rollins, to figure out what he's got left in annual road maintenance, if there is money that's left over. But this is a schedule that I have been doing for a while now, and I'm just getting tired of looking at all these line items that I don't know what to do with. And I'd like to get them off the schedule so that we only have projects that are current projects. And it would make it much less tedious, obviously, for you to look at a schedule and for me to look at a schedule and have to make sure that it's, you know, being updated for, you know, 400 line items versus maybe 100 line items.
Sorry, Katie.
Oh, what I was just basically gonna say, that this is a lot of great work. I'm glad that you did this, that it's, really starts to track everything.
And I've been tracking it for a long time. It's just, it's hard to give it to you because
I mean,
it's gonna, I don't want it, I'm trying to make it beg as few questions or confusion as possible, and that's kind of why I wanted to sit down with Jim and kind of go through and go, okay, do you know what this is? What was this? And some of this, I don't have the historical information. Like if I could print you all of the years of going back to 2018, you will see, and particularly on some of the road projects, that a budget may not have ever been put in the system. So it may look like it was over budget, but maybe it wasn't. Or it was never put in the system at a gross value if it has a grant related to it. It was only put in at the value that the general fund was, or that the town was supposed to fund, wherein it really should have been put in at a gross level, because that's what we have to spend to get, and then get that money back. So that's where I've been trying to kind of figure out it, particularly on those closed projects. So if you have questions, you know, I'll try my best to answer some of them, but there are a whole lot more columns to these schedules.
right, and I guess I would say that, you know, when you're working with numbers back to 2018 and stuff, the important thing is that the money's actually still, you know, the money's there. Because I remember the year when we did a lot of capital items, there was a lot of money, and the budget and the audit looked like we were overspent, but it was a lot of capital items that came out, not the budget part, but the, you know, the audit and the fund balance, because it had dropped. So just to make sure that when I know you're following all these lines and trying to get as much data as you can in terms of what's really there.
Right.
And so, Paul, the way that this will come out and be reallocated is when you put together the next budget. That's when you can do it. It doesn't need to be a separate vote. So the voters do that when they approve or reject the next budget. So it doesn't have to go to, some towns will make it go to a separate type vote. And if you tried to do it right now, like, you can't do it now, but we can do it when you do the budget.
Yeah.
That was our thought practice, was we wanted to get this done so that when we get into the budget, if there is money and we could potentially use it for next year's capitals, we do wanna put it all in a nice bow for the next, budget, referendum. Yep.
And I can potentially, I just have to look and see what it's gonna look like if I were to put some of this, with all of the columns in an electronic document, if anybody wants to see all of the column detail. You can't print it, it's too much.
So in 2025, I noticed on the 2025, it's not encumbered. There was a plow truck that's in the capital budget for a lease, and it's not encumbered. Does that mean we did not lease the plow truck?
I don't think there was a lease for the plow truck for 25.
It's listed on the page as,
Hang on, let me just pull up the schedule here. I have
it's
it.
on the second page in the middle.
All right, I'm not looking at the detail here. Is there an account number?
Oh, yes.
Can you read the account number?
Yeah, that's a good question, because, you know.
I've got it, Candy. It's 0311-100-2307-0000.
2307?
Yes.
It was
Okay.
$62,000, and it's
Okay,
not
hold-
in the encumbered.
Hang on, let me find, I'm in
Yeah,
the,
that's a different
Wait, you
line
have-
than I
yeah.
gave you then, because this says plow.
hang on, let me
Number
get,
seven,
let me get to
leasing.
them here. So, okay, so plow truck number 7, that is the 7-year lease.
No, plow truck number 9.
Oh,
Plow
It's
truck
plow truck number 9.
so that's 2502.
2502.
Plow truck number 9. It's 62,000.
That's a purchase.
Okay, 5-year commitment. Have we
That
purchased it?
is, that was purchased last year. That was the one I believe that they were gonna do a lease on.
Well, it's not in the committed line, in the encumbered line, which is why I'm asking. It's the amount of money remaining in the budget without an encumbrance. If it was purchased already, wouldn't there already be an encumbrance?
No, not if we purchased it already, because if we purchased it already, the purchase order would be closed because we paid the money out already. This is one of the projects that the Board of Selectmen in the budget had agreed was a 5-year commitment going forward. So it was allowed to purchase the truck, and it's going in the budget for 5 years to
Right, but,
carry it forward.
so,
So you wouldn't have the encumbrance if I go into that line item, I don't know that we have received that truck yet.
so I guess then I would ask, as you tell me more, is I would ask that without an encumbrance on that line can't be in a sweep.
No,
But there's no notes that say it can't be.
it just, this one says fiscal year 2025 new project in the
Right.
notes.
Yeah, but it's really a 24 truck. The reason I'm asking, because if it's a new truck and it was meant to be a new truck and not being paying off one of the ones that we've already had, then the new truck that hasn't been purchased, if it was brand new and not purchased yet or leased yet, then it would be something that Paul can look at as maybe just holding off on it because of the challenging budget year that's coming up with the
It might be the
capitals.
truck
it's-
that we ordered. that
I
was
think the
taking 2
truck
years to
may
come in.
have
Well,
been,
that's what I'm asking, is
Yeah, I
if it's
think
one,
that's the one
if
it
it's
is.
one, then it's not in a sweep, because it would be an encumbered. But if it's a brand new one, then it's something else to look for. That's why I'm asking which one it is.
Is that the Western Star? Or the, Mac?
2502, hang on one second. You're asking the wrong person on this one.
I have questions on the plow truck night and also how we're defining $62,000 a year, because obviously I need to be aware of that I have a $62,000 line item showing up in my,
The good news is.
Yes,
when-
I mark those
Okay.
that go,
The good news
those
is
are
we
in
don't
the
pay
capitals for-
interest on that money. And we save about $11,000 a year or something like that, $9,000 a year in interest because we pay for it out of our fund balance. But we still have to pay it back, so it has to still have money coming from the public tax dollar into the fund balance to pay it back.
give me 1 second here, I just want to look at this account.
I mean, you can come back to us.
do you have the right one, Anne Marie?
Give me 2 seconds here,
2502.
179, yep,
Okay.
311,
I don't need
100.
a specific answer now, one thing led to another for
Yeah.
questions.
While she looks at that,
So we did already buy that,
Pretty sure we did it.
I believe. Wait a minute. Nope. We got something wonky going on here.
I think you did.
Well, you'll figure it out.
We have a PO on this. We have a PO for $248,000. That I can see when I look in the account. Oh, I know why. Because the PO was done on January 2nd. That's why you don't see it. Look for it in January. It'll be in your encumbrances.
Troy?
I got a couple things. So Paul, on the, money left over from the fire truck, because that was a bond, package, I'm assuming that's going back to road repairs, correct?
No,
That money, the extra-
not exactly, because in the meantime, so there's $66,047 left in the aerial ladder
Correct.
truck. I guesstimated on the number, but I found the number. So we went to the voters and we actually said we were gonna buy a ladder truck for the amount of $1.6 million.
Correct.
So we can't just reallocate it to road repair. It's, as
Well, that
Selectwoman
was-
Perez
that's-
was saying.
That's the same as the bond, though. That was the bond package.
Oh,
It
well, there
road
was
repair
also-
and fire
There
truck.
was
There's
also
also a
fire department money, or the sinking fund, so
There was
they
also a little bit of
contributed,
money
I think,
outside the
200 to that. Bond was taken out for 1.4
Right.
for the truck.
There was a little bit of money
Yeah.
outside the bond that's probably left.
So does the 66,000 stay with the fire department? Is that?
No, it does not stay with the fire department. What it would do, it would come back to this board for potential, suggestion of a reallocation. And then when we go out to the budget, we would list X amount of capital items. Let's say there's one at $66,000. We would then ask the voters to basically approve the reallocation of $66,000 into whatever, capital project that this board decided that it wanted to push forward.
Okay. And
But
my
it could also
second
be
thing,
left as a sinking fund
Or it could, yes.
for the next truck.
It could be left for a sinking fund. It's, right now, it's just kind of stuck there, and we need to unlock it and decide what we want to do with it. And although we could eventually, put it into a sinking fund, put it back into the general fund, and then allocate it at a different day, there's a whole slew of options that become available. But what we need to do is get you all a number of capital projects that we feel are closed out and this money is just stuck. Let's do something with it, whatever it is, board's choice, but we'll have a few options that the board can decide what it wants to do with.
Next question.
okay, just checking. Anne Marie, this is, I've been wanting to ask this question, under ambulance revenue, on the revenue summary on general fund.
Oh, you're
could
on
you-
something else, hold on. General fund. Okay, what do you want?
It's the third one from the bottom on that page 1 of 13. Could you explain to me, what is that? Is that reimbursement?
Oh, you're in the actual,
Revenue pay?
the full report, okay, you're in the system report. I believe that's the reimbursements that come from the ambulance, that's what they pay us back.
So, is it 50,000 every year? How do we know that that's gonna be the same number depending on their calls? Or are they just obligated to only pay us 50,000 back?
I don't think it's just $50,000, it may, and hold on, let me pull up, because I'm not in that report.
Cause it said
I have to think where my
Budgeted
report
50.
actually is, yep.
year-to-date revenue 21.5, and then to be collected 28.4.
No, give me 2 seconds here, and let me pull up the report.
Third one from the bottom.
And I didn't bring my mouse, so I'm, working on handicap here. Okay, here we go. Oh, no, I think the $50,000 is just kind of, as we do with most of the revenues, you look at what the trends have been and where we've been when in setting the budget for the revenues, then that's probably, if you looked at further back in the budget documents that you had when you were developing the budget, you had multiple years of revenue, and that's probably where we just look and go, okay, the trend is this, and okay, this seems like this.
So that's an
For
estimate.
that one particularly, would be an estimate, yeah.
Okay.
Since they're all round numbers, they look like all estimates, essentially.
Yeah.
This is when
Yeah.
they put the budget
Yeah.
together and what they expect for the year.
I mean, unless it's a grant and we know exactly the dollar amount that's going to come in, like from the state of Connecticut, if it's a revenue number, like if you look at grants for municipal projects, 306,204, that comes straight from the state of Connecticut and from the estimates that we get from the state for our state aid numbers. Those are specific numbers. Everything else, all of the internal fees that we generate, those are all estimated.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Troy?
No, I'm good.
Other questions? Thank you, Anne Marie.
Thanks, Anne Marie.
Moving on to item 8, correspondence. Does anyone on the board have anything? Item 9, boards and commissions. Troy, Bill?
I'm gonna put it over to Bill tonight.
Bill?
So, we have 2 resignations on inland wetlands. Mason Keyswetter and Jamie Giantonio. Effective 1/17/2025, so we're gonna need to fill those seats. Up for consideration, Eric Richards, Economic Development Commission. Troy and I have both spoke to him. Think he'd be a good addition, so we'll consider him for step 1.
Just a question, Bill, on the resignations. You've got a highlighted note underneath. Notice received, but will serve out
You're
term.
right,
Is
I
that-
didn't, I
is that for
messed that
both of
up, my
them or
apologies.
just
So
one
they
of them?
will serve out their term till April.
Both of them?
No, just
Just the
Just
one.
just the
Okay.
one.
Which one is that? Because they're not,
Jamie.
Jamie.
so Jamie should have the 3 asterisks next one?
Yeah, I think they couldn't fit it in there.
There is currently 3 open full spots on it.
Anything else?
Troy, just so I know, you're saying there was currently 3 and then we're adding 2?
No, there was currently 1, now we have 2 more, that's 3.
Thank you. 2 and then eventually 3 once April hits?
Correct.
Okay, got it, thank you.
That could be a problem for a quorum.
That's
what I'm saying.
why I asked the question, yes.
Okay, so lots of open seats available. Anyone interested? Moving on to item 10, unfinished business. 24-50C, consider and possibly act on the proposed revisions to ordinance number 367, vehicles and traffic. Town Manager Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure you probably all received the email I sent out on January 7th. Did everybody receive it?
Yep.
I gave a clean copy, gave the proposed implementation of it. I think I've gotten everything and all of the input from the board, so this would be our 3rd meeting. And I turn it back over to the board for discussion and what they'd like to do.
So the final page, where under oversized vehicles is the final language. We've agreed at 13,500 pounds. We have the restriction that's been there forever on Case Avenue from Main Street north to Gay Street. And we've got the parking provisions. We have the fine of $250. And just to review, what is our implementation schedule, Paul?
So, I had suggested that the ordinance be enacted on February 1st, if it's approved tonight. From March 1st to March 31st will be a warning period for anybody that's parking an oversized vehicle on our residential streets. Then on April 1st, full enforcement with fines would begin. Part of the advertising would be there is a water and sewer bill that should be going out later this week. We would put advertisement in the water and sewer bills about the ordinance, but since we're putting a piece of paper, and please bear with me, since an insert is potentially going in the water and sewer bills, we are wanting to also add to pull your permits for any work being done at the lake for the deep drawdown. We're in a draft stage of that particular insert. If the ordinance gets approved, we are gonna put two items of significance into that notice, or into the bills that'll be going out. I did speak with the chief. His crew will be fully ready to engage the public with warnings beginning on March 1st and then eventually fining on April 1st of 2025.
So I'm looking for on the website, our website, so I'm under charter ordinances and regulations, and I also went under legal notices. And I don't see a copy of what we're changing it to. I see a notice from December 10th, but I don't see any new updated, the ordinance that you gave us. I don't see it on the website. I don't know if I'm looking in the right spot.
Yeah, let me look, because I know Terry had stated she put it up there. It should be the red line version of why we did the red line version on the website.
Be on here, Paul.
So people knew that they were changing.
Well, just because, you know, when we had visitors at the last meeting, they were talking about some unintended consequences, and so I wanted to make sure, I guess I've been wondering if enough people know about it, so that when we have I don't think there's an argument with the tractor trailers, but when it comes to those other trucks.
Is it what's
So I was
this one
just
here?
looking for where it is on here.
Should be under, I'm working with Selectman Marino's computer right now. We're under legal notices, obviously. That's a water bodies one, Paul, if you can back up.
Yeah, legal notices, I don't know if there's anything new since December 10th. Unless my
should've
phone isn't showing.
No, it shouldn't. No, that's what we're seeing on the computer as well. What I'm thinking, I'm just trying to find the legal note, or the notice of it. Add an ordinance, let me just click in.
There was a second one here. We didn't click on that one, but.
I looked under news and updates and I didn't see it there, unless I'm not
This is
seeing
it here.
it.
So on the, what was it, October
October 31st.
October 31st, the intent of the Board of Selectmen, it's the notice of intent to amend bylaws ordinances of the town of Winchester. She had stated at the 3 meetings that were going to be held about ordinance number 367.
Right, but the charter states that we are supposed to put the text on our website. And I'm sorry to bring it back up, but we've
No,
talked
that's all
about
right.
this before, because we used to have to publish the entire ordinance in the newspaper at the cost of $1,000 or $2,500. So what we said instead was that it would be on our website with the full text. And so I guess that's why I'm asking, because it should be on our website.
You want to go back to the beginning?
Yeah, I want to go back to the beginning. And I know Terry and I did review this, and I can say without a doubt that the clean version went on the website. Unfortunately, I did not ask her where it went, or, looked for it myself, but
Is it under here?
I just want to make sure it's there. that's all.
yeah, I'm gonna look
Because
quickly.
it would normally be under legal notices,
That's
unless
where
this
I would look
website,
for it.
I mean, because the website just works so well, that, perhaps it's not.
I noted the sarcasm and looking forward to meeting with Evan tomorrow.
I don't know, I've only been harping on it for like 2 years plus, but,
Yes.
I don't know.
It pains me to go on our website, but I hope to start to.
Because when you're on your computer and you go for the search button, it's right up smack in the middle, but it never says search, it's just a space that you know is there.
Yep.
You touch it and then you can search.
Yes.
And then on this one, I don't even think there's a search button. All right. And it says, no matching results.
I mean, I would, let me go to the, where I'm gonna go next, and I don't like just, checking a box, but I'm going into the Board of Selectmen, meeting, packet, that what's in yours is gonna be available online as well. Does that actually constitute as it's available online? Well, yes, it's available online. Is it easy to find? I don't necessarily want to make that argument, you know?
Yeah, it is here.
Yeah. So,
If it's a public notice change we're doing like this, shouldn't be that hard to find. Right?
right there.
It is under agendas for Board of Selectmen. It's,
But it's
So-
not under legal notices.
it is not.
So I guess going back to,
Fix that tomorrow.
yeah, but I think, I could be wrong, Selectman Perez is, do we have the obligation before an ordinance is officially passed to put it, and if I'm wrong, just stop me, but do we have the obligation to officially notice it in a very easy spot before an ordinance is passed, is the question.
Because I had looked before in December, and I saw the December 10th one there. So
But
I
if it's
didn't
not
look
gonna-
until just now to
If
find
it's
it.
not gonna go into effect until February 1st, you have until then to post it, even if we made a decision tonight.
No, I'm gonna stay on this.
We can
Oh, I
probably
know
table it
what
to our
to
next
say,
meeting.
but I don't want to say
I was
it.
gonna say.
Well, yeah, so we're talking now about enacting it in February, and then when do we start it? February 15th, or do we start it now, March 1st?
I think there's enough time frame in the start date that we've set now, where even if we do put it off to the first meeting in February, there's still a large chunk of time.
To start it when? When would you want to put it into effect?
It would be
So
March
it'll
1st.
still be March 1st for the warnings and then April 1st for the go live.
No, we had February 1st for warnings. No?
No,
Yeah.
March 1st
Oh.
is the warning period, and then April 1st is full
All
enforcement
right.
of it.
Gotcha.
So if we table it to the 1st in February, we still meet that timeline.
We would meet February 3rd, I believe. And do, the only item that we're gonna miss is the water and sewer bills that are going out.
I mean, you could include in the water and sewer that this ordinance is unavailable under legal notices. It will be enacted on, at the February 3rd Board of Selectmen meeting. And
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
I just feel this way because of what was said to us at the last meeting. I feel,
So then since this is the third meeting, we're just going to table this.
And the third meeting.
Until
will
our
be in
February 2nd meeting.
well, I mean, we didn't make any motion, so we don't have to table anything. We just move it to the next meeting.
Do we have to motion it to the next meeting or just ignore it?
He would just do it.
Okay.
Just also keep in mind that the water and sewer bills don't go to everybody.
Yep, yes, and people at the lake, most of them have wells.
But we get sewer bills.
You do get sewer bills, yes.
Right. And the intention was to include the deep draw information because inland wetlands was overwhelmed 5 years ago, and we need to try to encourage people to come out and start the process now for the deep draw next fall.
Yeah, those notices, I told Paul to put them in the sewer bills, but we've also noticed it on the, in our last newsletter, but the last newsletter doesn't go to everybody. So.
And I heard the board loud and clear. One of the reasons why, you know, obviously, I would love to be able to mail this ordinance to every single household. That comes with a cost. For a couple $100, I know we're not gonna hit everybody with the particular ordinances or the deep drawdown notice. It was just something for very little expenditure to at least get a little bit more exposure on this potential ordinance as well. But I like the suggestion where we don't have to say it's enacted, but it could be enacted in the February 3rd meeting. We have a draft, and it's very easy to add, you know, potentially coming on February 3rd.
All right.
Before we move on.
Yep.
I just want to be clear that the clean version that was emailed, any final changes, the word oversized vehicle per legal counsel is advising to use that. Anybody want to make any other suggestions, comments?
Do we need to define temporary parking? That last sentence, what's temporary parking? The last sentence.
Oversized vehicle used for purposes of temporary moving and or delivery of items shall be allowed for temporary parking, meaning unloading and loading. When you're talking about, temporary moving. Now, a moving truck could be at somebody's residence for a half a day while they unload the entire house. that would be temporary parking, that it wasn't expected to be there long, but they're there actively doing something, that requires the truck to be in the street.
I think this is going to be really difficult to enact. Unless people make note and complain.
Well, if a police officer drives down a street at 11 o'clock at night and sees a oversized vehicle parked on the side of the road, it's pretty clear. Unless they're loading or unloading, or it's a moving van that looks like it's gonna be unloading in the morning.
Well, police cruisers go up and down the street and don't ticket cars that are parked on the wrong side of the street or on sidewalks, so I don't see
I mean, that's a different discussion. Right, yeah.
Okay.
We can
but
talk
I'm
about
okay
enforcement
with
of all
this,
kinds of
but I
laws.
think it's going to be difficult.
Heard loud and clear, we're gonna have to put an emphasis, obviously, especially in the beginning, especially, during the warning period is where, you're using the carrot more than the stick, and we wanna let as many people know that are parking oversized vehicles in these residential areas where, hey, right now, it is, that's where I think the most enforcement should happen, because there is not a $250 fine, and I hope our officers are gonna go out there and let as many people know that are potentially parking these oversized vehicles in the residential streets, and that when we get to the April 1st, that maybe it's, but I know I'm very optimistic, but it is something that I know our resident, he was here, look down for a second, the resident that, started this whole ordinance was something that was very glaring, and when I called at the time, I think it was Jeff at the time, Mr. Green, he says, Paul, we don't have an ordinance, and so we started to talk about it, and we initially started with this huge concept, and then we whittled it down to this concept. But Selectman Grappo, you're 1,000% right, but I'll have to work with our officers and make sure we get enforcement on it. Because
Thank you.
what good is an ordinance that
Stand
no
for
one
it.
listens to? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, in parking restrictions, the last sentence there, or second to last sentence, under no circumstances shall overnight parking of trucks as
That's
here.
in
No, that's the wrong.
That's
you
the
got
red
wrong
lines.
one.
That's not
Yeah,
the right
go
copy.
to, the best copy that the board can look at is that clean copy I emailed out.
It's also here. It's everything from oversized vehicles down is what you emailed out.
Yes.
Yeah, the 3 paragraphs or 4 paragraphs.
So this is the clean one, right?
This is the clean one.
It's still in there. So, under no circumstances shall overnight parking of oversized vehicles is herein defined, or any portion thereof be permitted unless authorized by the local traffic authority. Should we have criteria set for what can be authorized by a temporary exemption? Or just leave it to the traffic authority?
So the traffic authority, by statute, is the town manager, and then their designee, or my designee, is the chief of police as well. So we are the two individuals that are the local traffic authority. Listen, I obviously helped craft this ordinance. I heard what the board said. To get my authorization, I mean, you're basically saying our move went a little bit longer than we expected it. We're gonna have to, keep the truck here overnight. We're back here at 6 a.m. in the morning to take the rest of the furniture out. But I can't imagine there's gonna be a lot of situations where we're gonna authorize, overnight parking, since now we have an ordinance passed. Because if you allow one, you have now just opened up Pandora's box where, well, you allow this person, now you're gonna allow this person.
That's why I was
and the
thinking, do we
ordinance
want to
might-
set a
I think
criteria?
to try to craft every possible scenario where you might have to have it
Would be
in
overthinking
statute
it.
would be 17 more pages. I think that the traffic authority will know, okay, we've got a moving situation going on, or we've got an emergency pipe is broken and they had to leave a dump truck with a trailer and a backhoe on it overnight. These would be extenuating circumstances that the traffic authority would allow for. But if we're gonna try to craft every possible scenario, I don't know that it's possible. I just came up with 2 for you, and,
Right.
If you come to us next year and you say, look, we're getting 27 calls a week about oversized vehicles being in front of people's things, then if we need to make an amendment, we can always amend an ordinance, can we not? So for the one time, two times it's happened in a year. If one of those people calls, we'll deal with it, but.
You good?
I'm good. See y'all February 3rd on that one.
Moving on to Section 11, new business, Planning and Zoning Commission Annual Plan.
So I'll just.
Members want to come up to the table? Or some members, I don't know if you all fit.
Is George not coming?
That's the letter I sent. It was included in your packet. Meeting after.
Put you out there, Rissa.
I know.
Thank you all for appearing. So, Section 316 of the Town Charter, the Board of Selectmen shall require and receive annual plans of action from various town boards and commissions and will have general supervisory control over the coordination of action by various commissions. So, there are 7 members up here that are elected and held accountable by residents. The Planning and Zoning Commission are appointed board members and don't necessarily have the impact from the citizens that the 7 members up here feel. And that's been shown the last 2 budget years as we've had 5 budget referendums. So one of the things we wanted to do is make sure we're all on the same page. And the plan that the Planning and Zoning Commission is putting forward for the coming year or years is kind of what we wanted to discuss. You want to give us the direction that planning and zoning is going in so far, or would you like us to just kind of weave the conversation?
You can,
Well, I can speak as vice chairman. I think if you look at our past history, I've been on for 7 years. We have no clue what's coming in before us for the year. We take every application, go through it, make sure it meets all of our regulations, and try to approve all of them if possible.
Can we just make sure whoever's speaking is speaking to the microphone, because people can't hear at
Peter
home?
Marchand, Vice Chair.
It's very important to hear it on YouTube.
No,
Yes.
we try to approve all applications. A lot of times, we place conditions on them so that they meet our regulations, so that they also meet conditions for neighboring properties. We've approved many large projects in the past. Unfortunately, a lot of these haven't been built, such as Tractor Supply. We've approved an office complex on Route 800, which has not been built. Large multi-million-dollar expansion of a home at Highland Lake. That was approved on nearly 2 years ago, but has not been. Unfortunately, we have also approved other large projects, like the old hospital project, to turn it into housing. We just approved a bachelor school for additional housing. And a lot of businesses up and down Main Street. And as commissioner, that's my plan, to continue to pursue those options. And hopefully more of them will come to us to be approved. So.
yeah, and one of the things, so Rista Malanka, I am an alternate on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I am a lifelong resident of Winsted, but I am also an AICP city planner. I was a certified zoning and wetlands enforcement officer. I've not upheld my certificates, but I do keep up on all the laws. And I am the Director of Economic and Community Development for the Northwest Hills Council of Governments for this region. So I bring that kind of expertise to the table. And one of the things that, we've talked to our land use staff about is, kind of the expectation that we have as commission members, so that he can relay that to the applicants. So when we get applications, they're complete and they can be approved on the first meeting. They don't have to pay and come back and do that sort of thing too. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for, or if you have other, happy to have more of a conversation if you have other things in particular that you wanted to discuss, but.
Anyone from the board?
So, if I may, Mr. Mayor, in Section 316, we ask, and you're not the only board we're going to be meeting with over the next several months, but the idea is for each board to come in with their annual plan. You know, given the last 12 months of business that you guys have conducted, do you have any plan for anything different, any changes? You know, what is the 25 plan for P and Z?
Well, I mean, so planning and zoning is is unique. We don't create plans other than the plan of conservation and development, which is due every 10 years. We're very reactionary based on the applications that have come to us, and to make sure that we're reviewing those applications. So I don't necessarily know that we have a specific plan other than to review the applications as they come to us. And then, you know, I think we are, you know, we've talked with Jeff about some of our regulations being updated and put online, but we're really taking staff lead on that and based on applications that come in.
So how do you see the mission of PNC as it relates to the town and development and economic development? How do you see the mission of PNC?
So the planning and zoning is very statutorily driven by federal government and by local government. It's considered a police power. So the things that we can do through a police power is really help protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the community as we look at these applications. We should be business friendly. We should be looking at that. But economic development is not our primary focus. And not that to say, and I don't mean that in the sense of we don't want to be business friendly, we don't want to work with businesses. But by statute and by federal law and case law, we must protect the public health, safety, and welfare. And if we use other factors in making our determination or creating laws, which are the regulations and the zoning map, we face lawsuit and being denied from that. So I think our role is to work with our staff to make sure that we're open and business friendly. If we have regulations that don't make sense, if we have a proposal that comes into the land use office and it's not allowed by zoning, but it makes sense, we should be looking at our regulations to change them so that they don't have unintended consequences. But I think we need to hold steady to the statutory requirements of looking at these applications through the lens of public health, safety, and welfare. Making the uses that we want as easy to get as possible, and I mean that by, we have 3 different levels of jurisdiction. There's, when we're making the laws, which is making regulations and setting the zone maps, we have the highest level of discretion. As long as we don't violate the statute and federal requirements, we can do what we want. The next level is with a site plan or a special exception requiring a public hearing and a little bit more discretion. And then site plan, which is administrative, that can be carried out by the commission or by our staff to say, you know, if you meet the regulations, we should apply. So uses that we want to see on Main Street, we should allow by site plan. And the uses that are a little bit more intense or may have more negative impacts are higher up in the level. I don't know if that was your
To some
question.
degree, I guess what I'm trying to understand is, since P&Z controls much of the development, all of the development in town, you have an absolute impact on the business-friendly, as you described it, or from our perspective, the revenue-producing pieces on particular projects that come to town. I draw your attention to page 1 of the POCD that says, maintain long-term financial viability of Connecticut towns through promotion of local livability, employment opportunities, and the identification, promotion, and protection of assets that provide long-term fiscal sustainability. To think that planning and zoning has no impact on the economic development of a town, I can't imagine how we could say that clearly, because it does.
Yeah, I'm not saying it has no impact on the economic development of the town.
What type of consideration do you give it when you're looking at a particular project or a particular change in a regulation that we're looking for, or that a town person or a developer is looking for? What type of consideration do you give the economy part of it or the fiscal part of it?
We look at the regulations and if it's compliant with the regulations or not other factors that are not spelled out in the regulations. If they're not in the regulations and it's appealed, we can lose those appeals and it can be quite expensive.
But but planning, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to just like chime in with this too, because do we look at the data? Did anybody pull the data to see how many projects have been approved over the past year versus how many have not? I know that Nova Farms was something that was upsetting to people for not having approved because of the possible revenue. But have we looked at the data to say, yes, they were approved or no, they weren't? So that's one thing, because one of the things I always find is that we're not using the data to inform what our thinking is, and I think data will help us do that. The second thing is, I think when the question was asked before about how you do things to promote things or how things happen through you, I think you missed the point, not the point, I think you missed saying for yourselves that you do work with the staff to talk to the other boards such as ZBA, such as wetlands, to bring projects forward. I can think of a major development where everybody was in on that one and finally got approval, but with conditions. I think that your chairs have worked with I know that Lance had some meetings with the chairs to talk about things moving forward. I know Lance brought some businesses in with information that goes to the planning and zoning to look at. And my last thing I'll just say too is that with everything, there's always two sides to it. So I'll talk about Nova Farms. And watching that, Nova Farms has the economic piece of it, and it had the neighbors piece of it. One of the things that zoning was made for was to make sure and give assurances to all people in a community that if you have your house here and it's zoned for this, that you're not gonna get that big box store next to you, or you're not gonna get this next to you, or you're not gonna get that next to you. So I think it's a multi-layered kind of thing when we look at, what planning and zoning is and whatnot. I think the economic development piece comes from, and we'll probably talk about it later, because I talked to Paul about this about a week and a half ago with some ideas on how to move some things forward around here, is with overlaying plans that show us, what kinds of things that can be done, what kind of incentives can there be, what kind of state help can we get, and that would be done by people that were the planner. The planning office would do some of that with guidance from the boards, the zoning boards and whatnot. So I think that when you look at what you do, I think, have promoted some things. I think that there were some changes that were made within certain zones to allow for certain things. But again, what's the data?
So let's.
And if we want to talk about Nova Farms, I think we can.
So before we talk about
Yeah.
Nova Farms, let's be clear about what we're talking about, though, because Nova Farms was never decided on. What was decided on was whether would we allow, and it didn't necessarily need to even be on the proposed property, but would we allow the growing of cannabis in town, period? That's what was being decided that night. You wouldn't have known it because we had all kinds of people speaking about Nova Farms.
Excuse me, let me correct you, Paul. That was not what was on it. They wanted us to add cultivation of marijuana in a production and innovation zone. If that happened, then they would have to come back to planning and zoning and get a zone change for rural residential property to be changed to production and innovation zone.
Right, but that wasn't
would've-
specific to
just a minute.
Nova, is what I'm saying.
But that would have limited the town to one production facility and one only. Because the smallest amount of property in the town of Winchester is in the production and innovation zone. So the town's hands would be tied to only have one cultivator in the town of Winchester.
So
So you wouldn't be able to have any other ones, because that would only be in production. If the town wants that, they should add it to the rural residential zone, where you have the most property that could be cultivated.
So who adds it to the rural residential zone?
And can I add to that a little bit? As the regulation was written, there wouldn't have been any properties that it was allowed in. So as I had said before, there's 3 levels of jurisdiction. The highest is when you're making the law, and then special exception when you have some discretion. With the uses, now, I will say the Planning and Zoning Commission, I was the city planner or the assistant city planner in Torrington when the retail piece was first coming out. And the Winston Planning and Zoning Commission was proactive. They adopted regulations before a lot of people. We were looking to Winston to be a leader in this. And so if you're gonna say, I think we should maybe go back and look at some of the restrictions for where retail are, maybe reduce the 200-foot. I would probably agree with you, because we put it in place when things were a little bit unknown. We put some of the requirements that they thought needed at the time, but now it's been around for a while. They've figured out how to handle the money with debit cards. We're not seeing overcrowding, we're not seeing the traffic issues, we're not seeing the crime. So maybe it is time to go back and look at those regulations. Outdoor cultivation is still very new, especially in Connecticut. There's one in the state of Connecticut. I've talked to the first selectman in Morris, I've gone up there, they get complaints about the smell for miles and miles and miles. But, well, I won't say miles, over 2 miles though. Up to 2 miles, they get complaints about the smell. They get complaints about the view of it. So when we're looking at a regulation change, we cannot look at the person or the application. It's land specific. So if you were in the meetings, I had said multiple times, what about an overlay zone? An overlay zone would allow it to be in more zones, would allow us to look at not only the property itself, but the site plan and the business plan, so that we can then make an approval that encompassed all of those things, giving us the highest level of discretion we could have to allow that use. And they refused and they refused. It wasn't that we didn't want to, they didn't propose any changes. So we asked at the first public hearing and at the second public hearing, and they did not make any modifications. It was an application from the commission, or from the applicant to us. It was not a commission-initiated change. So the regulation that was proposed was not allowed in any of the zones. The one zone that they did allow it was very specific to meet their needs and not the needs of the community for one site, and it didn't give us enough discretion to approve a plan that protected the health, safety, and welfare. I'm not telling you that I'm opposed to the use, but because it is new, and no doubt in 5 or 10 years they will have addressed some of the stuff, but when you look at the country and you look at the other things, there's organized crime, there's fire issues with the smell and the burning, and there's smell during growing. And those were the major concerns, and those regulations that were proposed did not give us enough discretion and authority to address those concerns, and that's why that regulation was denied. I wasn't even a voting member, I was an alternate at the time, but I don't think that just because we want to have additional tax revenues, we should accept anything. And anybody that lived here in the 80s and 90s remembers the soup kitchen next to Pearson School that stunk so badly that when we had visiting schools come for our cross-country meets, they would puke in the parking lot. Those are the things. That business paid taxes, but it was a negative impact to our community, and those are the things I think we need to look at. So if there is another proposal for regulations, or to look at changing or loosening the regulations for retail use, I am all for it. I want business here. I want to make sure that we're business friendly. I'm an economic developer, and I want nothing more than to attract more businesses. But we can't do it in a way that's gonna have long-term future harm. And I just felt like that regulation did not protect us.
So what's interesting about that, and I was at that meeting that night, I spoke at that meeting that night, and perhaps the way it was explained to me, or the way I interpreted it, according to what you said, is incorrect, because they limited your ability to perhaps make a proposal that would have made sense to the board, correct?
Correct.
And that was the proposal that was given to us. We had no input on what they're presenting to us, and that was pushed to us.
Is that untypical, where you don't have input? Like, would you typically have input?
We usually do.
Okay.
I don't know if that was the town planner or if that was Nova, that they wanted it, someone was advising Nova to present it to us that way.
Well,
And that meant that they were gonna have to come back to planning and zoning again for a zone change, which was just gonna delay the project more.
Well, and I think one of the things that we had said when they first came to talk to us about this, there can be commission-initiated changes, which don't have any timeframes associated with them. We can take as long as we want, kind of mull it around as long as we want. And we thought it was gonna take us a long time to do some research and figure out what we wanted that regulation to look like. So we suggested to Nova Farms for them to draft a regulation that would, be appropriate, meet their needs and be appropriate for the town. And so this is what they came back with. Because it was their application, we have less ability to change that regulation. And we're now bound by their timeframes, setting a public hearing within 35 days, closing a public hearing in 60, and so forth. So that was the process. If we took that on ourselves, we might still be researching it, right? There's a couple examples, what's best, how did, so we did ask them to put that forward, but that meant it was an application which limited our ability to make modifications to it without their approval.
So I appreciate the clarity on that, because that is an explanation that at least I hadn't been aware of up until this point. And I also am really happy to hear you say that, well, none of us want to bring anything to town that's destructive, as you pointed out, right? The example you gave, or, you know, anything here just for revenue. Be very clear from everybody on this board that we face a budget crisis that if you thought last year was a lot of fun, it's going to be a real hoot this year. And we need to figure out a way to create revenue in this town without going back to the taxpayers again and again and again and raise taxes. So what I like the best of what you said tonight is that you're open to bringing in development, that you want to help bring in economic development. You know, I've heard a board member say that in no way, shape, or form do we consider revenue. And I just wanted to be clear that we all have to consider revenue, right? Within reason, something that's going to be good for the town, but it's critical to the success and development of this town to get growth and to bring in companies or different businesses. And I get it, right? The idea, and I had said this that night, if you had asked me 5 years ago I'd be a proponent of growing marijuana somewhere, I wouldn't have been. But this is a changing world that we live in, and we're going to have to be open-minded sometimes to things that we may not personally be comfortable with. But I appreciate the feedback on at least where I think I understand. And in asking you for your plan tonight, where is your head on revenue and partnering with this board to bring growth to town?
And I think all of us are taxpayers and volunteers in this town, and we know revenue is a major problem and an issue. And we've lived this life for many years. That's the reason I got back on planning and zoning. I was on it once before for 10 years and got off. In the last year, the only project that I know of that we did not approve was that change of regulations to the zone for Nova Farms. Every other project that came to us, we approved it. We put conditions on it to try to protect neighboring property or the town. Like we've done, we've pushing for enclosures for dumpsters, so everybody, when you drive by, you don't have to look at a dumpster overflowing. We want them fenced in. Porta pots removed from service stations that have been in town that are unsightly when you get off of Route 8. Things like that to try to improve the town. We've worked with several businesses on Main Street to improve their signage and to move locations and things like that. So we're very cognizant of the economic impact we have. We also have had joint meetings with Inland Wetlands and Zoning Board of Appeals to try to get our regulations to work easier with them, because wetlands does have some problem with our regulations, like impervious surfaces and things around the lake, and those are things we're looking at changing some of our regulations on. We worked 1.5 years, and Troy can tell you, on driveway regulations to get it away from the selectmen, to get it off of your plate, so that now we've got hard and fast driveway regulations that can be enforced. Public Works can issue permits and try to stop the water and the ice out in the roadways and things like that to make it safer. There was nothing for parking lots, standalone parking lots, which the town has several of. We just wrote and passed regulations for those. The next project we're looking at is subdivision regulations to update those. And we're always open for the board or the public, if they have something, give it to us. That if you see a regulation we should be changing or something we should be adding to our regulations, please give it to us so we can discuss it. We have to have a public hearing and change it. And those, that's what we're looking forward to do, and that's always been our plan. Our chairman is very good about that. If there's any questions, reach out to me as vice chairman. And without a planner now, I've offered Jeff that, if someone comes in and looking for development or looking for a meeting, I'm available to meet with them, to discuss with them, what may be a problem with the project, how we can help them before they even apply to meet our regulations, or if we need to change our regulations to try to get things done quicker. So those are the things that we're trying to do at this point. Yes.
We also modified the steep slope requirements that helped the business in town expand. So we're always looking at these different things. So that, I had a list of things that we've done. Since I've been on the board, there hasn't been, except for Nova Farms zoning change, which I personally put in writing, that I was not happy with that. It should have been in rural residential, and they never took any heed of that. I put it in writing, so it was there for them.
So, and, you know, I'll say, over my career, I worked with over 15 different commissions, planning, zoning, Illinois Zoning Board of Appeals commissions. And some commissions are very difficult, right? But this commission truly is a business-friendly commission, and they do want to do the right thing. And if you hear of a development or a project that is coming, but it can't make it because they can't meet the parking requirement or something, you know, whether it's me at the Northwest Hills COG or Rob Phillips at the Northwest Hills COGs or a regional planning agency, we're here to help. We're here to write regulations as a commission member. I can help review and give input into regulations. You know, hiring the next planner, or if it becomes an economic developer or kind of a land use person that looks at both, I would be happy to, be part of that decision, or kind of looking at what that job description might be, looking at what I've done as both the land use administrator in New Hartford, which is more similar in size to this, as the assistant planner in City Torrington, as the economic development director, and now I sit on a lot of boards and commissions statewide, have a lot of access to those things. But one of the things I did want to just talk about and hope that you all know, when it comes to economic development, one of the biggest things we're going to get the most impact in our grand list is redeveloping our brownfield sites. So the NHCOG, and I think you probably know this, right, did apply for and receive a $200,000 assessment grant to work with the property owners at Sun Chief Electric. This is not a remediation grant, but it will help guide a redevelopment process so he understands what the environmental conditions are, what the restrictions are, and then we'll look at the zoning. And if there's changes to allow a good redevelopment project, we'll look at making some of those recommendations. There's other programs out there looking at, Willow Street and Meadow Street and some of those redevelopment projects. They don't happen on their own. They take investment from the town, and even though it's a tight budget and tight, and I know it's hard, they're going to sit that way forever unless the town invests money in either planning or studies or help those property owners. And there is a lot of grant funding out there to do that, so we can help with that. And then, lastly, talking with some of the business owners on Main Street even tonight, if we don't look at ways to improve our municipal parking, they're not going to get enough customers, and they're not going to survive. So I would say, planning and zoning is here to make sure our regulations support those three initiatives. I'm here as a staff from the regional planning organization, director of economic and community for the region, that I want to help you. All of these are part of our regional plan. There's federal money out there. If we have a plan to do it, there's state money. And I think those should be the three priorities that we kind of look at. And lastly, if you want more, January 29th, next week, we are having an economic development symposium, and we're bringing a lot of professionals from the state to talk to our economic development directors, our EDC members, our planning and zoning members, to talk about what should we be doing, what are businesses looking for, how to develop main streets, how to do a redevelopment program, what business resources are out there for our businesses, and I would encourage you all to come and get some of that information. And it's a free event, but we're asking that you register for food.
I just have one more comment, and then I'll let somebody else. First, thank you for the work that you do, and thank you for coming in tonight. I think for me personally, to have you three actually tell us a little bit behind the scenes at P&Z and what you're thinking and what you're working on and what your goals are, I think that's helpful, right? Because for us to, and again, he's tasked with economic development, helping us grow our grand list. And for us to not fully understand where your goals are, or what P&Z's thinking, is it aligned? And I feel like we're more aligned than I certainly felt when we came in tonight, so that makes me feel better. And I think we should continue to communicate so that as we get projects. And now Novo happened to be a bigger project, right? We don't get a lot of those coming down too often. So I think that's one of the reasons that we wanted to get some insight. Sounds like it was poorly written. Sounds like there was poor flexibility in that regard, and for that's a shame. But thank you for volunteering for the board, first of all. Thank you for coming here tonight, and helping me understand at least, and I think the rest of the board,
Absolutely.
where your thinking's at. So, thank you.
And one last thing we've been working on for a year and a half now. You're talking about the Wallens Hill project. Right now, between the old hospital and Bachelor, you're looking at roughly 75 housing units. I don't know how many children that may bring in, but we've been trying to work with the school system to find out what is their school capacity in lower grades. We've got it from Gilbert. I'm still waiting to get it from, the zoning board is waiting to get it from the school system. If another big development goes in, it could impact our school system. We as a planning agency have to take that into consideration. Because does that mean we have to build another school? We have to buy another school? You know, where that goes, which it's out of our purview, that's the Board of Education. But it's something we have to consider as a planning agency, and it's something that we've been working on, Troy, when he was on the board. We asked for this information, and I brought it up many times, and it's one of my big concerns as a resident and a taxpayer. So I'll leave you with that.
I have a couple things. You gentlemen, the select board has been working on parking heavy trucks on the streets. You're trying to create an ordinance for that. We're so forward thinking that we had a home occupancy business come through, which is a trucking company. We approved it. But one of the special conditions was that we added in no overnight parking of your trucks on the street. So we were ahead of you. Mr. Pozo, he put up with an ill-conceived project for a number of years next to his property that caused him all kinds of grief. This board would probably put different rules on that project. We think of the neighbors, we think of the town. You know, why should there be trucks parked on the street just because we approved the business, but we restricted the trucks?
First off, I'd like to say thank you guys. I mean, I was on the board with Peter and Will. You know, you guys we always were business friendly. We always look forward. We were careful how we did it, but we were always business friendly. And I'd like to thank Rista. Thank God you took my seat. Your knowledge
She's
is
a great addition to our commission.
president, and
glad to
you
have
do
her.
an excellent job, and I'm very happy to leave that seat to you. And with that being said, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. We have a staffing issue that, and I know being on the commission myself, we were always left out in the dark, and there was a lot of things that didn't go correctly with what we had to work with. With that being said, this is an opportunity for you guys. I want to know, and I want you to tell the town manager and this board, what would you like to see going forward in the position to guide your board and commission?
That's not something that you guys need to answer now, but get it to Paul in a timely manner.
I think they already know.
Yes. We need someone that works with us and help guides us. But most important, they have to work with the customer when they come in and make sure everything is complete. If they need assistance from us, from the Planning and Zoning Board ahead of time to talk with them, they should reach out to us and do that. And not just come up with a harebrained idea and run with it, as in the past.
I agree.
So I'll say, you know, one of the things, and I don't mean any disrespect when I say this, because I was a zoning officer for many years, and but you want to think like a planner and not like a zoner, and planners can do planning, right? But zoners look at things and say, the regulations say no, so the answer is no. Whereas a planner will say, well, the regulations say no, but that doesn't seem to make sense because this is a good plan. Why do the regulations say that? Do they still make sense? Are there unintended consequences for why this is written, right? So if you think like a planner and have that critical thinking when things come to your desk, I think that would go a long way. So when you're looking for somebody, look for somebody who's planner-minded. And also, you know, making sure that the person who is hired or is looking, or Jeff can do this, he'd be great at this, making sure the applications are reviewed early. There's pre-application meetings. They're sent to the police, the fire, the building official for review, so that all of the technical pieces of the application are complete before they even come to the board. Now, we're just reviewing them, here, public comment, discretionary items, not the technical, there's not a zoning chart, this is not close enough. Those are the things that we need to empower the staff to do and really make sure that they have the ability to do that and the knowledge and the training to do that. So I can't say enough good things about Jeff, so this is not a slight on him in any way, but I know he's kind of new to this, and I think when I look at towns that are successful, it's because they have strong staff that make sure there's complete applications and they think like planners. So that would be my only comment on that.
Anyone else from the board? Anything? I just have a couple questions and then we'll let you guys go. Any important public hearings coming up that you guys can think of right now?
Nothing at this point, no.
I believe the POCD was last updated in 2021, so we're good till 2031, or is that? Because
every 10
we were a
years.
little late, right?
10 years.
I think last, no?
We were within 6 months.
Okay, so 2031. And then,
But if there is something in the planning and zoning, in the POCD, even a minor change, there's something that comes up, or, we did a bar grant and we wanted to add our brownfield strategy. That counts as an update and we can do that at any time. But there won't be a complete review for 10 years, but if there's something that, needed to be updated, we can do it at any time.
and then lastly, this is just an opinion question. Public health is in your mission. Do you consider the economic health and well-being of the community to be part of public health?
Of course,
Yes.
I just wondered.
yeah.
With that, thank you for your time tonight. Thank you for all the work you guys do on the commission. It's a thankless job at times. Moving on to item B, sale of town properties, 269 Walnut Street, 99 Hubbard Street, 48 Bridge Street, 124 Rockwell Street, 19 Hill Street, 5052 Cottage Street, 104 Norfolk Road, 109 Marshall Street. Paul, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you remember, the board met regarding these 9 properties. They had asked for an opinion from our Planning and Zoning Commission. I believe that letter was attached in your packet. It was dated on 1/6. The board did vote unanimously on all of the properties. They did condition 3 of the properties listed at the bottom of the letter, which I'm sure you've read. We are now at the stage, and I want to review the ordinance of sale of town property, Article 1, review of a request by the Selectmen, referral to the Planning and Zoning Commission. They had 35 days to review. They have obviously reviewed and issued comments. There is a refer to any other town agencies. At the time, the board did not suggest referring this out to any other town agencies, but that is a step that this board can take. And then now the next step would be placing sale out to bid and notification to the abutters would be the step that we are on. After that step, just to refresh the board, considerations to award a bid. In rewarding the bid, the town may consider in addition to the price, the following: whether the bidder abuts the proposed parcel, whether the bidder will merge the proposed parcel to make it more conforming to planning and zoning regulations, whether the bidder is current with all taxes and user fees due to the town of Winchester, whether the proposed bidder is a tenant or occupant of the property, the proposed and likely use of the proposed property, and any other reasons the board feels best promotes the well-being of the town, including long-term use potentially for the town, the economic benefits or loss for the town, the environmental value, and the aesthetic value of the subject premises. Once you've decided, we would then go to a special town meeting, vote to approve the sale, taking title of the following property, and I'll note that the buyer is responsible for all closing costs. So before you tonight are the 9 properties that you wanted planning and zoning to weigh on, looking to see what this board would like as its next steps.
So, Paul, I thought that we discussed putting a number on each property, not going out to bid. In other words, putting it on the MSL, appraised value and putting it on that way. I'm not too fond of the bid system.
It does say, it's consideration to award a bid. A bid can also be, when you make an offer, that's also considered a bid. And I apologize, Board, I want to just, before I began to speak, I should have mentioned that Dave Sotarana, the realtor that the board had brought on, unfortunately, and he's fine with me making this public announcement, he came down with COVID. He would have liked to have been here tonight, unfortunately, with COVID. He said, well, I can come. I said, no, we're good, Mr. Sotarana, please. So he would have liked to have been here tonight, but I'll just, and he was fine with me announcing that publicly, that unfortunately he is under the weather with COVID. So, but going back to you, Selectman Lemire, a bid is also an offer that if the board decides to go out on the MLS, that a bid is an offer as well, so.
So they would, so the option would be to put it out on MLS with an asking price and then accept offers, or are you looking?
That is correct. The way.
'Cause I think that's what you were trying to get to.
It was discussed at the last meeting is that these properties could potentially go out under the MLS. We would then receive offers. I would bring the offers back to the Board of Selectmen, and they would decide whether the offers were something that were appealing, that they wanted to move to the next step, or accept none of the offers and decided to do something else with the property. Candy?
Yeah, well, I think one of the first things we should discuss is, or make sure that it's understood, is that we are doing this for the purpose of getting as much money per property as we can and the revenue from them later on, correct?
Correct.
Yes?
Yes.
So Paul had some information that he had put together with the assessor that was not given to us in the past, where the assessor took some of these properties and merged them with the neighbor's property that showed there was be very little revenue increase from taxes, but sold separately would be a higher tax revenue. So I think the board needs to just make sure that in our next step, and our next step, by the way, would be to have Dave Satarana give us a recommendation in terms of the amount of money he thinks he should put it out on MLS. And I agree, MLS, since Barbara Wilkes was sitting at this table, and we did that on North Main Street, we got a considerable amount of money more than just bid them out. That when he gives a number to us on it, then we say the number's the starting point, and then it goes out on MLS. But we should also know ahead of time that when we put these numbers out, that it's open to everybody, even though neighbors are, could be notified, that it goes on our legal notices on the website there, so people can look them up, and not let happen what happened, as you know. And then we weigh the economic benefits of it, right? And then when it goes to town meeting, they go to town meeting on it, there's a whole list of how to run that town meeting that we have to make sure we get in there too. But for right now, I would say that if we go to the next step, we have Mr. Satarana give us a number he feels that would be appropriate for each of these properties. We approve that he goes out with that number, and then we give it 30 days or whatever time period that we want, and then people can send in their offer, as you do on any other real estate transaction. So we just all need to understand exactly what we're looking for here, because there's a bunch of different things that Paul just read, and some don't produce as much as others produce, so I just want to make sure we're clear where we're going.
I just have a question, and maybe it's there, or maybe Selectman Perez, but we can turn down an offer not only on price, if we decide, for example, and any time that you merge two pieces together, the tax revenue is always going to be less, as you pointed out. We can turn down a deal based on that. If the abutting owner is buying it, we're not obligated to accept that offer, are we?
No, we're not obligated to, well, it all looks at if it's a bid, and you're putting it out to bid, you can pull back the bid requirements, but you can't choose between the bid because you put it out for bid. That's how things used to happen a long time ago. But when you go out to the MLS and with the realtor and offers, that works. in planning and zoning sent us some requirements for a couple of those properties. I would say that if they went straight out on the MLS, that I don't know that we can make those requirements in terms of timeframes. Those might have to be requests for proposals, and Paul can, talk with Kevin on that for sure. But if we have a request for proposal, then somebody accepts it, then we can put the conditions on it. But I think if you just sell it outright, I don't believe we can put a condition on it. I don't believe.
So Jeff and I spoke about the three properties that have the blighted conditions. If they were to sell, I don't know, you're correct, we can't make the offer conditional or accept the offer conditional that they clean it up. But the calendar or the clock would then start over again, and, Mr. Green would be out there immediately blighting them, and fines would
Right,
start
yeah.
increasing.
But I mean, but how we list these is important too, with the conditions that we may, if we want to or don't want to. So I think the basic parameters we have to agree to as it's gonna go out, because there's 6 of them, right? Miscount 6, there's 6 properties going out?
I have 9.
9, okay, so 9 properties going out. So we wanna be pretty clear.
8.
8, all right, well, the properties, just go, the properties that we're putting out there, we want the public, not that anybody's watching us, we went through that the last time, but we want to be clear what the expectation is by this board of why we're letting go of town assets. Because that's what we're doing, because once it goes, the town no longer can use it for a park in the neighborhood, can't use it to run sewer lines through or water lines through or anything else that we, might be a town use anywhere on any, not that there is on any of these, but in general going forward. So we want to make sure that we are very clear with why.
And I'm not too sure that, if you list it, I'm not a real estate agent, but I was associated with one. I'm not too sure that if you list it on the MSL and you put a price that you can say, if someone meets that price, I think you have to sell it. You can't.
No.
Although that's not true?
No.
Okay.
Well, we do have a real estate agent in the office.
So I have a quick question too, but Ken, and maybe it's the point Troy's trying to make. We list 99 Hubbard Street, and Dave comes in and says, you should get this for it, and we put it out. And a budding neighbor comes in and offers us 20,000 more for it. And we're not positive if he wants to just incorporate with this property or not. If he comes in with the highest bid, do we sell it to him, or does he have to say, well, I'm buying that property? Does he have to tell us, I'm buying that property?
We don't have to sell it to
10,000 more than
anybody.
we're asking?
You're under no obligation, once you receive an offer, when it's on the MLS, to
Right.
accept it.
Unlike a bid, where we put something out to bid that we're obligated to accept the bid, if you were selling your own house and you gave it to an agent who put it on MLS, if you don't like any particular condition of the deal, you don't have to accept it.
I would just note for the record as well, that when the town does go out to bid, we do add a line from our lawyer that says the town reserves the right to refuse all bids as well. So I just want to add that whenever we get into a bid thing, that we do add a line that the town
But
has
in
the
the
right to
MLS,
refuse.
you can choose between
Correct. Yep.
offers, whereas in a bid, you can't.
Right. And you can not accept any offer if it's listed
Well, either one.
for sale.
I'm just, I guess to clarify, I'm the neighbor of 99 Hubbard Street. I put in the best price on it. I'm not telling you why I'm buying that, and then as soon as I buy it, I tear the house down and I incorporate it to my property. Oh, well, we can't deny based on we think, okay, this might be a neighbor and he's offering a price.
And that's a decision we make when we get that offer. We can decide to accept or not accept that offer.
And most likely, when you do it on the MSL, you're gonna ask.
MLS,
thank you.
MLS, sorry.
4 times in, it had to become LS.
I'm being dyslexic and I can't talk. If you put it on that, most likely the price is gonna be higher than somebody would be willing to pay for just to protect some land next to them.
Most of the time, I agree.
Tom, I can just comment on the conditions we put on those properties were just to make sure that I visited every one of the properties. Several of those are legal building lots where someone can buy and build a structure on those. One in particular has a house on it with good bones to it. I know the house personally, the person that lived in it. It can be repaired and put a lot on our tax rolls. And that's one of the reasons we put the conditions, just to make everyone aware that these need to be done. And I know our blight enforcement officer will take care of that after they're sold, so.
Thank you.
One more quick question, maybe Jeff can answer it. So we have 50 Cottage Street, 104 Norfolk Road, 109 Marshall Street. It says unless blighted conditions should be satisfactorily remediated. How long do they have left? How long?
All those properties have more than surpassed the timeline, which is why the town has taken ownership to them. They might have foreclosed the blight lien. I don't know all the particulars.
Okay.
But if you want, just in general, what happens when a blight notice is issued, fast forward past the friendly notice, when it's official notice, they get 14 days to clean it up, or contact me with a reason why they would need an extension, which might be granted. After that 14 days, it's $99 a day until they satisfy all the blighting conditions. So they could have taken care of 9 out of 10, it doesn't matter until they reach that 10. They can't talk to us about closing it out and negotiating and paying that fine.
And you might think that anybody buying one of those three, if they've paid us X number of dollars for the property, aren't gonna wanna start getting $99 a day, or have it foreclosed on again by us, right? So,
They are not. And we have recently had a few circumstances where somebody wanted to buy a blighted property that had not been fully remediated yet, and we basically took the order off of the land records and let them know, if this comes back, you're gonna be on the record next. They've all taken care of the problems, not been an issue. I expect these would be the same with investors or neighbors.
So I guess more the question was, are these three our properties now? Are these released?
No, they will not be released until a sale.
we own them though.
We own them.
We already own them.
We own them,
Okay, okay.
so.
So we didn't lien those properties for the fines?
I'd have to check the particulars.
Not
of
these,
those.
because we took them because they owed us so many fines, that's why they turned them over.
Oh, the ones
But
that
the
we
one you
released
just,
for
the
sale
one
to
you
go
just talked about,
Yeah,
did we,
they paid blight fines.
they paid all the fines?
Yeah, they would have been negotiated by the town manager or
We've,
the prior town manager.
So they were all liened,
They were all lien.
and when it sold, we got the lien
We
money.
got the lien money, or prior to it selling, because
The lien had to be
One-
Well,
satisfied.
I mean, before, the liens weren't excused. They
no,
were-
no. I've been here for 8-9 months. We've had a very robust year of collecting blight fees,
Just-
and been cleaning up a lot of liens.
And if this is not an appropriate question, don't answer it, but I'm just curious, just so we know a little bit more about these properties. Which one did you think had the good bones is actually repairable?
The one on Indian, on Marshall Street.
And that's good to know, honest, really, for us, so that when we're looking at offers, we go, well, that's the house that was actually fixable as opposed to a crush situation.
So I would say the next step is for us to have Dave meet with Paul, give him what the listing should,
list.
pricing should be, and then that February 3rd, is it? February 3rd, we bless it, and it goes out.
May I offer up a recommendation? On February 3rd, we have an executive session, because we're going to be talking somewhat of a strategy with price. I don't know if we want to get into the full-blown debate publicly of if, the
Well,
realtor says a price.
But we're not
and-
negotiating with the person, and that's what came up before with us about executive sessions and what we use them for. So I think that we should do the pricing in open session, and then when a buyer comes back with a number, that goes into executive session to accept or not accept the negotiation on that.
Although if we're going to be speaking with the realtor about potential list prices, we may want to have a discussion about those list prices, and I'm not sure that that's not something that we should be in executive session for.
But the number is gonna go out to the public anyway.
I
So
understand
think
that,
you
once
need-
we've decided the number,
Yeah,
though.
I think that then you should talk to our attorney and ask that because of the way that the executive session works. Because I've thought about it since the last time, And there was like a few things that made it kind of yes and kind of no. So that's why I'm saying that now.
Yeah, I just, we might want to be able to discuss different pricing strategies with him, and that might not be something we want to
Well,
do.
yeah, he's kind of sort of given it to us sort of before, and we kind of sort of know the ranges he was thinking of. So I don't know, I just think that for the public to know it, because these properties are going out to the public, and the fact that, I just think they should be able to, I think we should just talk about it.
So on the February 3rd agenda, I'll see if Mr. Sadarana can obviously be here. We'll either come with the list of what he's suggesting, and I'll find out if going into executive session to discuss these potential, at the end, whether we go into executive session or not, this board will have to vote publicly on listing each property at a particular price. That has to be done, no other
Right,
way around.
but it also might be helpful for people to understand how it gets priced. So I would prefer it to be an open.
At least give us have the attorney give us the option whether it's okay for us to do it in or out, and then we can vote on executive session, I guess, right?
All right, moving on to item C, renewable auction program.
This is a fun one. I'm not sure if you had a chance to review it in your packet when it was sent out to you. This is a program that I joined when I was in my prior town, and that other towns have actually joined as well. This program does not bind us into buying our power, using this particular energy, or anything. What it's doing is it's using our kilowatts that we buy every year and leveraging it to produce solar farms either in Connecticut, Massachusetts, or anywhere else in the country. So what NRES and SAM do is they go out and they build these giant solar farms all over the country. In order to get federal and state tax credits and prove why they need to build these massive solar farms, they need to show the energy that is currently being purchased that isn't tied into a particular solar project. That then allows them to unlock all types of federal and state incentives, because it is proven that, this green energy that they want to produce, that could offset this particular town's, municipalities, agencies' energy, in hopes that eventually all the power that we use in the country is being produced by green energy and by solar. So they obviously get huge incentives from state and federal authorities to do these projects. So what they're asking for the town of Winchester to do is to say, we want to lock up your energy for the next 20 years, meaning no other solar farm can use your energy to justify their solar farm. They want to use ours for the next 20 years. If we allow this particular agency to go out and use our energy as leverage, we would receive $450,000 payment, or over 5 years, no interest or anything like that, or we can take it over 5 years. I will note, when we met with them, we've had a few meetings with them, that I did ask when that particular check would hit. And I'm sure you know why I asked that question, that we really need help beginning July 1st of 2025 up till June 30th of 2026. We met with them Thursday last week. They are supposed to get back to me sometime this week, letting us know when exactly I guess I was a little assuming that the board would take the $450,000 instead of the 5 years, but long story short, I don't have the exact date or time frame that a $450,000 check would be written to the town. They do understand the importance of why I need it in next fiscal year and should have an answer soon about that. I'll note that the city of Meriden, the town of Montville, Torrington, Wyndham, New Britain have all signed on. Plymouth was another company that our finance director lives in. They were a town. I can tell you that Windsor Locks was a town that all joined into this, solar auction program and took, payments when they built the farms. A great example of a solar farm that this particular company is doing is the Old Waterbury Country Club. Is a solar farm that's being produced, and they have leveraged all types of municipalities throughout Connecticut to build this solar farm in Waterbury on the Old Country Club. I'll note that there is no plan to build a solar farm, at least by this agency, anywhere in the town of Winsted. It has nothing to do with them building the farm here. It has to do with a farm that they're looking to construct somewhere in the country, and they need to leverage power from several municipalities or businesses throughout Connecticut to justify why they want to build a particular solar farm of that size. I wanted to put it out to the board, see what they thought about it. I'll open it up for questions,
How long
comments.
does the contract last?
20 years. For 20 years, we will not be able.
Grand for 20 years.
450 grand for 20 years. We do nothing. We can put solar on our own roofs if we want to. We are not tied to any particular item that we are doing right now. We are free to buy our energy from any power broker. We are free to put solar on any of our roofs. This is just saying in that moment of time that this particular agency that wants to build a solar farm is out there, and they've locked our energy up for 20 years.
What are we selling, Paul? Exactly. Can you tell me that?
Thank you, Paul.
Our kilowatts, so that no other agency that builds solar farms can justify their solar farms with the amount of kilowatts that we are using every year.
So we're not buying their power. They're
Not buying
not
their power.
supplying us anything. They just gonna,
They're using us.
they're telling us that, I can't even think I can say it out loud.
You can say it.
Yeah, they are.
No, we can't.
No, I really can't.
No, you can't clean that up.
They're just buying our perceived energy use,
Proceed.
or no, they're buying our actual energy use to get a credit from some other federal agency to
It's gonna be
build
more than
their.
450,000.
Wow, that's just amazing, right? You can sell anything today.
And so a couple pages in, on their sales flyer here, they also put MLG also helps municipalities acquire solar projects on town-owned properties through an RFP process. So here's $450,000, but we're not gonna bug you to put any solar on your property this year.
I mean, you'd be surprised how many people knock on our doors, especially solar brokers, of how many want to do
I get it.
particular roofs. I mean, it's a phone call a
So
week,
this
if not
is-
more.
You know my pet peeve a little bit with solar. It's great on my barn for a couple lights. So this is one of these companies in Michigan right now. They're leveling 475 acres of forest, stripping it to save the environment and put solar energy. It's 475 acres of solar panels. You're saying this is one of these developers that like, you back us, we're using your energy, but we'll give you $450,000.
So
We're just giving you
To get their
$450,000.
federal tax incentives, they need to prove that they're saving a certain amount of non-green energy, and they're using us as, I don't know, the example, apparently. But I mean, the question I have, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, I was gonna answer.
can we bid this thing out? Is it worth more than 450?
Yeah, well, they give us 1.5.
There's gotta be somebody else that give us
It's a great question. They all roughly come in at the same price because the federal government limits, I think it's 12.5 cents per kilowatt. Everyone's gonna give you the exact same price because they're limited of what they can give you, and they give you the maximum of what the federal government allows. To Selectman Pozo's point, I agree with you. Ruining 450 acres of forage.
475.
475 is not something that I would like to see. Unfortunately, where municipalities are strapped in budgets, if it's not us getting the 475, it's another municipality that's probably gonna sign up for it, and they're gonna say, use our kilowatts for leverage, and those farms, unfortunately. And remember, this is appealing to not just, our municipality here in Winchester, but any municipality throughout the country is going to, probably,
So
they're
with
gonna
no-
find
with
a
no-
few.
With no other obligations, nothing in the fine print.
Nothing.
I'm sure there's what, a 27-page contract that.
No,
or
it's
they're just
actually-
gonna hand us a check for $450,000, say, here, Paul, here you go, here's $450,000 for Winchester.
It's not a very lengthy contract. I had the fortunate news of, doing it in my prior town. But one of the reasons why we wanted to put Meriden, Montville, Torrington, Wyndham, and New Britain, you don't see them, and they did it years ago, you don't see them in the news that, they were taken to the cleaners, and this was so horrible that all of these towns received, and much more kilowatts than we used. They received, a massive payment for that municipality to give them the leverage. Again, I went into the budget mode. I'll note that this particular company didn't knock on our door. I knocked on their door, because I understand the capital hole we may have for next year. And this was just an idea that I wanted to bring to the board and find out where you were all at, because when dollars matter, this is a way of potentially, we have roughly a $2 million hole in the capital budget next year. I'm a quarter of the way there if you all warmed up to the idea.
Just a quick question, Paul. Do we give up anything? In other words, if we want to put solar panels on the roof of this building, do we lose any tax credits for that
We do
or
not.
any federal funding for that?
We do not.
So we lose nothing and
We lose nothing. In fact,
We have to go to them for the solar project?
no, we do not. Nope,
Okay.
we are not bound by them. It was interesting because, as you probably are aware, we do have a solar project that we are getting credits from. It's already been checked out that we are free to sell our power. We've gotten the green light from the federal government that our municipality does qualify. They were given access to our power bills because obviously they need to know how many kilowatts we use. But we have been given 100% green light that we can give them our kilowatt hours that we are buying every year for them to go out and leverage to build a solar farm.
Didn't our president just sign off on a new Green Deal, and he's gonna drill, baby drill? What happens to solar when that happens?
I
As
don't.
long as we get the $450,000.
Yeah, I don't know.
So real quick, Paul, we're not making a decision on this tonight. It's just some information to review, correct?
It is some information to review. We're gonna have to move quick because, again, I reached out to them. There are a lot of municipalities that are obviously gonna jump on this, and once a particular project is, set, they have to now find a new location and do all that. So you could be potentially 2-3 years out before their next solar project could be built.
Yes, so you brought up solar, so I have a bunch of questions.
Okay?
I'm just been trying to wait patiently.
You did have your hand up.
First of all, this is $450,000 over 20 years. It's $22,500 a year, I believe.
you say we can take it in lump sum?
We can take it in a lump sum.
I know, but it's
Oh.
still $22,500, which leads me to the next thing. When we put the solar farm up on Platte Hill, and they put 70-something acres into conservation for the neighbors up there and whatnot, they gave us credit, right? So we got credit for, and we get that every month on our electricity bills, whether it's to the school or to the town, and Anne Marie's still not here, but she has it all calculated by everybody, and I believe some of that money that we get on a yearly basis might be around the 20,000, if not 20,000 more than that. So we're selling all of our potential kilowatts to one company for 20 years for the same amount of money we're getting from one solar farm in town. That gives us approximately that same amount of money, utilizing how much money we've used in the past, I think. We had, when Bob Geiger was here and that solar farm came in, he hired lawyers out of Hartford to review the whole contract and stuff, and he also reviewed with the company how much it was gonna be taxed. What that particular farm was gonna be taxed, and there was an agreement about the acreage and about the equipment and stuff like that. So we have 2 other farms, I'm assuming, coming in town up on Spencer Hill. And the reason I think that's definitely happening is because all the way up Spencer Hill, when I went up on we went for this little drive, and I think it was Sunday, there are new telephone poles. There are huge poles that they've been replaced all the way up Spencer Hill, and then it stops, I believe, right at the area of where the farm might be going in. That farm, and then the other farm, and then the Torrington teamed up with our state legislature to go and make a legislative rule about towns having more input on solar farms in our own towns, and in terms of the trees and things like that. So does this, if we went with this deal, would it affect us getting any credits from the 2 solar farms that are going in? Or are the 2 solar farms part of these people that are going out to give it money to the other towns instead of sending the money down through the municipalities? Because I know Torrington's not getting some of the benefits of the new solar farms, the ones over by Lover's Lane. The powers credits are going elsewhere, right? So I think with this solar thing, that I think there's a lot of unanswered questions in my mind in terms of what are we giving away for that money? What are these other farms that we have here? Have we leveraged the taxes on them and their property? Have we talked to them on it? Are we sent signals out based on the information that we used on the first one that we had? There's also other towns that are within their planning and zoning and with pre-planning. I want to say it's maybe Ridgefield or another town that is requiring in parking lots that when they put canopies on things, or maybe it's in towns where there's more, or when they do solar projects. Like if you think of a school, if you put in a car canopy, people get to park under their cars and keep them clean, but at the same time, all the solar is produced up on this canopy instead of being up on a rooftop. And being up on a rooftop, obviously we have the roof and the replacements of the roof and whatnot like that too. And there are, I believe Gilbert, aren't they putting up a solar up on their roof? And K6 has been looking at solar, and so how does that all fit? So I think this begs the question, how does this all fit for Winston? How does the state law, how does the federal government with their credits, how does this company fit? How does what we currently have, what are the 2 new ones coming in? And what are land use for solar to make it a complete kind of look at what we do?
I think you asked a lot of great questions. The biggest question that, and I'm gonna follow up with our liaison tomorrow, is those new poles that are being placed by, which right now they did pull their farming permit. And currently there is no, and again, I know what we think,
Maybe
but.
they just replaced all the poles because they needed to.
That's the telltale sign.
Well,
I don't know, I mean,
I
they
guess
just
the
sort of
question
stopped.
is, you know, I thought Eversource was a partner, and I speak with our liaison often.
I could be wrong, it could
That
just be regular ones to hold up the wires for winter trees falling on
That
them.
they did in Norfolk when we built ours. It's a $9 million thing. They just finished it this winter.
Yeah.
The town gets $40,000 a year, and Colebrook gets all the power, and all the credits and everything go to Colebrook. And the new poles, the massive poles, they went from the transfer station down to Colebrook. That's why they go to the Colebrook store, and that's where it gets distributed. So, and they were there and a guy actually got killed doing them this year, or
So
last year.
Is Spencer Hill the unspoken solar farm that's not going in?
Yes.
But
It's
isn't
gonna
there,
be a farm till we see solar panels go up, right?
but
They're
isn't
gonna-
there
they're-
another spoken
It might
solar
be
farm
sheep,
that
it might be
is
sheep.
going in?
It could be sheep, but they're putting in heavy telephone poles.
Isn't there
But
a
it might be
second
a
one?
solar farm.
There are 2 potential solar projects.
Jeff, can
on
you come up to
Spencer Hill.
just to the microphone? I'm afraid
I'll
I
tell you
don't.
the little bit I know, because I don't know everything about it. But there are 2 potential solar projects on Spencer Hill. One already has its siting council approval. That is at the unaddressed property owned by the Aherns. Right below them is the other project. They have not even put an application before the siting council. They're the property that had cleared some trees over this past summer and fall. They intend for a solar farm to go in there, but again, they haven't submitted that application. In the
But they applied for
meantime-
a farm permit?
Yep, I did request that they apply for a farm permit because that was historically a farm. You can obviously see the open meadow space that had been up there historically. So they wanted harvest some of the timber, which is a allowable agricultural use under those rules that we have in the state. But just to put a bow on that, since they were already taking trees down, I said you should at least have a farm permit just to tie all that back in. So they did do that. They intend to bring their sheep in as early as this late spring, early summer to start grazing them there. They will not be permanent residents, I understand.
The sheep
The
are
sheep
only gonna
actually
be, they're only gonna be
move to their
temporary.
different facilities to graze as needed.
So they're temporary sheep.
Temporary sheep.
That was the last email we received from them, that
Snowbird
their
sheep.
their farm animals will be arriving sometime early
But there's also
this spring.
studies now too that the cows and the sheep can coexist with solar.
Yeah, and just so we know, this is not hypothetical sheep. They're actually bringing in
Oh.
sheep for the solar farm that's not gonna exist.
Right, but the other one already has been approved by the sitting council,
Yeah.
which might be why the polls went up.
Could be, you know, that, the one that went through the siting council was a little over a year and a half ago when I pulled the file. You know, that one, done. This current one, and I can tell you that a solar farm isn't something that gets approval right away from the siting council. There is a length of time, even when the clock starts, the siting council isn't making a decision right away. And then I believe, since it's heavily on the radar, they do really look at what the residents are particularly going to say about that particular farm. And I've seen siting council go for, and I've seen siting councils go against. Where I've seen siting council go against is when there's a big public outcry from the residents of the community. You see the siting council not approve that particular solar project.
But hasn't the siting council, didn't this just happen on the Litchfield-Torrington line? Where there's a massive solar project going up, and Litchfield and Torrington they weren't even informed until they actually leveled that property up there, and they said, hey, by the way, we're putting a solar farm and you have no say over it.
Well, it's true, you don't have a say. Whether
Well,
they knew
but I
or
think
not,
that's
don't
what
know.
they're trying to change, right? I heard some on the radio today about
Yeah.
this.
So I can say that when they go through siting council, all the abutters should be getting letters. They have to do massive press releases. So it's a matter of, you know, what people are you know, seeing or not seeing. But it was, you know, I'm not speaking in favor of these solar farms, but you know, I also don't want to make it known that they do it, you know, overnight, and next thing you know, it's a process to get these farms built. But I do want to go back to a few other things that Selectwoman Perez said, that excellent points on it all, but I think the most important one is that we're not tied to anything with this particular agency other than being able to say, you're going to leverage our kilowatt hours to go potentially, or to go build your solar farm wherever you have it, you know, approved. Doesn't limit us in terms of whatever deals we can make with other solar companies, whether we want to do solar ourselves. This is just saying that for the next 20 years, no other massive solar farm can use our kilowatt hours that we're purchasing to justify the reason they need to build a solar farm.
So the two on Spencer Hill couldn't use our kilowatt hours. They'd have to go find somebody else's kilowatt hours to justify their solar farm to the sitting council?
No, so those probably are not, those are smaller solar farms, believe it or not. I know they look massive, but the ones that this particular, you know, or these companies do when they're actually leveraging are huge solar farms. Talking about, you know, your Michigan, that would be a particular farm where that. I can't speak for, you know, where the solar farms that are currently being built, where that particular power is going, but I don't believe that any municipality is
The
tied
big
to
guys
it.
that do like 100,000 panels plus
Correct,
is what they do.
correct. When you're out, you know, in the real country of the country, you're seeing these massive solar farms. This is what they're building. These smaller ones that you see, you know, up on the hill over there, probably are just a particular company that built the farm and selling all the energy to Eversource to use.
So the farm that we have here now, that we have an agreement with,
Yes,
pays us $22,000 a year or thereabouts.
roughly, yes.
So they came into town, they got siting approval, and then somehow we made a deal with them.
That is correct.
Well, no, we get the energy credits. It was through the state or federal formulas to send the credits. If they sent credits to us, we buy the power from them, we get the credit off the Eversource bill, and they have something over there. We didn't, what I was talking about with that particular solar farm is the taxation of their equipment and the taxation of the land that they have. That's what
What?
Bob had talked to them about.
Got it. So this agreement wouldn't affect any other local farms, if we'll call them that, right? Like that one?
That is correct. In fact, that came up in conversations, that they did see that we were getting a solar tax credit on our Eversource bill. They've checked it all out, and it doesn't affect the current tax credits that we're getting or any future ones that we may get down the road.
If another farm opens up where the new nice poles are, do we get a credit from that one as well?
I would assume we do through the state policy that we currently get with the existing one that's.
But that's one of the
being done.
arguments in Torrington's using, is that they're not going to get the credits. That the
Right, you
credits
have
are
to make the
sold off
deal
to
before
someone
they do it.
else.
You gotta make it- Yeah,
Because we don't get the credits in Norfolk, we get a cash payment, we don't get credits.
Well, yeah, I mean, the same thing, he's getting money.
I
but-
take cash. Still good.
But I think you gotta, I mean, I don't know that much, I just read bits and pieces here and there of things that
Very
come out.
confusing.
You know, but
There's so many ways to do it.
they have, I remember the people that were doing the one on Platte Hill, because I went to a couple meetings and stuff about it. And it was a little complicated in terms of, it's like follow the little cups going on there where the money's going. It just kind of feels that way. But there's, the credits go out based on how it's been figured out in Hartford or the federal government or whatnot. And I think there's a real possibility about not having that money available for credits going forward, I think in the next couple weeks, if it hasn't already happened.
Also, keep in mind, and it just recently happened that one up on Plot Hill went down, and it didn't generate any power for a few months, so there was no credits. So we had to pay those bills in full.
Because water and sewer gets them.
That's
And
correct.
that was on the planning and zoning when that Platte Hill went down. They promised the world, and so did the company that did the Norfolk Transfer Station. And it's funny, as soon as they're done, they don't finish. They don't take care of the rest of it. They don't plant the grass. And they're not gonna maintain them because Platte Hill's not getting maintained. So that's the problem.
Are they they're not looking to build another solar farm in Winston, right?
No, again, yeah, this solar farm will not be constructed anywhere in Winsted, and I believe probably not even in Connecticut. They would not give us the location, but give me assurances that this solar farm is not proposed to be in Winsted at all.
But it sounds
I'm
as though we
sorry,
have two others coming. I'm sorry I brought it up and maybe put too much time, but I'm extremely leery when somebody comes in town and says, hey, we'd just like to give you $450,000 to use your name for nothing. There's no catches whatsoever. It's just, here's free $450,000. And we can just say we're using your name, Mr. Marino.
So
if
I
you use your
always
name, I'll
ask
give you
this-
$250,000.
I always ask this question, and I never get the answer. What do your credits look like?
Yeah.
And they never give the answer. I'm assuming, and this is just an assumption, if we're getting 450, I can only imagine if you don't know, solar is very expensive.
That's why someone had a good
to
point.
do.
Is it 450? Or can you go back
So
and
the-
say, look, I talked to my board, they'd really like to know if we could get
So
seven.
the federal government limits, it's 12.8 cents a kilowatt. That's all that the federal government will allow them to extend out, because then what's gonna happen is, it could get ugly. The first one that offers 16 cents, they're gonna get all the business. They make all of these solar, farm people be legitimate and say the max that you can give a community is 12.6 or 12.8 cents a kilowatt, and everybody's at the max, and that's it. So,
They also get regular tax credits off their income too, right? Because this is an expense.
they're
In
making
addition
money.
to the solar money they're making,
Yes.
they get.
They are, I don't, if they continue to build these solar farms, I can tell you that there's money in it, and, this is just a very small piece, but something that I at least wanted to put on the board's radar, because I am worried about next year's budget. I'm worried about the capital, cliff that we're gonna be into. $2 million goes through my head. Is this a quarter of it, potentially? So I could bring in this particular company, they're more than willing to come in.
They have a rep that comes out?
Oh, the Connecticut based.
I'd love to talk to him.
How about we just let Bill go talk to him?
I'd love to talk to him for an hour.
I mean, our meetings are gonna start getting, pretty busy.
You wanna set something up in the afternoon? I'll talk with him in your office. Tell him to wear his best silk tie and his shiniest shoes, and let's talk solar
And
business.
Attorney Pozo's gonna have his way with him.
Yes.
Is the board okay with that?
Yes,
Yes.
I'd like him to go talk to him.
Everybody's good?
Yeah.
That's our next step, and so the next time it's on the agenda will be Town Manager Harrington and Selectman Pozo for the discussion, so.
All right.
Excellent.
Moving on to item 12, citizens' comments. The Board of Selectmen welcomes public comments. Speakers be limited to 3 minutes. Who wishes to speak? Anybody? Item 13, Selectmen's comments and reports. All right, well, I'll go here. So far too often, this board and the town gets beat up on our roads. We received an email this past week on the work done on Chapel Road. He would like to express gratitude and compliments to the Public Works Department for an excellent job done on the eastern end of Chapel Road. He believes the draining problems that existed since the road was probably first established have finally been remedied. And that is from Bud Whelan of Chapel Road. So good job. The Public Works Department and Town Manager's Office also received that. For once, we're not getting a black eye on a road.
And I apologize, Mr. Mayor and Board, I should have brought it up under my Town Manager's report. Offer was made and offer was accepted to our Clerk of the Works. They will be starting this week. They passed all of their background, and so we now have an official Clerk of the Works. Good. So, apologize, I didn't include that, but that's exciting.
That should help. That should help this year.
Extensive background, engineer degree, worked in another municipality, and by George, we actually stole one from another community, so yay us.
No other selectmen? Moving on to item number 14, executive session to discuss personnel matters and refuse and regional waste authority. Do you have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Inviting the board and the town manager.
Inviting the board and the town manager at 9:31. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Be back in 2 hours, Glenn.
Or 2 days.
You missed that one again?
That's where they always are.
Apparently, I haven't learned that yet.
Yeah, and that will include, code enforcement as well. Yeah, if you still can't get it going, just, change out this week. Oh, okay. It's a little crazy.
Good night, ladies. Stay warm.
you like the envelopes or no?
Sure.
Been here this late since the budget season.
It's not that bad.
This is a good practice session.
It's almost past Troy's bedtime.
Oh, my God.
Way past my bedtime. Except for I've been up for the last 3 days, so it doesn't matter.
You get all the sleep you need in the spring.
No, I just, welcome back.
Oh, look at you start.
Good evening, we are back from executive session at 10:55 PM with no action to take. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you, good night, stay warm.
Started the car. Started the car. Upstairs, but it's been parked there since early this morning, so I can just imagine how cold it is.
Ciao, see everybody.
Well, yes, my wife had to go pick up our kids.
Yeah, I'll send in an update once we have a discussion with the solar guy.
I'll get into your car tomorrow morning.
Or you won't get out of it by the time you get home.
I said, no, you're not.
Yeah, that'd
She
be
goes,
bad.
why? I can't see out of it. I go, you're not going to the car. Right up there.
Paul?
Yes, which ball? Me ball.
Yes.
Hey, give me a couple time